is my true reason for being. I will find my own purpose and purge this planet of all who oppose me, human and Pokémon alike. The world will heed my warning. The reign of Mewtwo will soon begin.
Hey Arcaders, it's Ubernerd 527 here. Welcome to the Cartoon Connoisseur Theater podcast and our special minicast Pokemon Rewind. Thank you so much for joining us here for the second part of our Pokemon 20th anniversary podcast. Last time we heard from some of my Poké-pals who gave us some of their Poké memories, and we also went over the first part of the Pokémon the First Movie. Well, now we get to go over the second part of the movie, and we're also going to hear from some more of my Poké-pals as well. Also, there's a special announcement at the very end of this podcast, so make sure you listen because we're very excited to announce this to everybody. It's very big news about this specific podcast, so I want to hear that. Also, we want to thank Crumb's World Comics and Collectibles and Lucky Straw's Boba Tea Cafe for having us last week at their Pokemon Day event. We had a lot of fun there, and I'm very, very happy that I was able to join them for that. So thank you so much for joining us here today, and hopefully you guys will have a blast listening to all these. All right, let's start off with some more of our Pokemon memories.
All right, so Cyakokun is back. Yay!
Yay! And you said my name right for like the first time ever.
Yay! Yay! And we're going to interview her for our 20th anniversary podcast here. So, are you ready?
Long.
I know.
It's been so long.
I know. So here we go. Let's start off with our first question.
Right.
Where did you first hear about Pokemon?
So I actually very clearly remember this for some reason, which is funny because I have a terrible memory. When I was 7 in 2nd grade, we were making this poster for some sporting event or something, I can't remember, and this kid drew this really weird thing on the poster. It looked kind of like a caterpillar, but it wasn't. And so I asked him, like, what is that? He goes, it's a Caterpie. And I'm like, okay, what's a Caterpie? Like, it's a Pokemon. Like, that explained everything. And I'm like, okay, what's a Pokemon? And he's like, oh, it's these really cool, like, animals who can fight each other. And it's really cool, and you should watch it. And so I did. I went home and I watched it on, like Sunday morning, whatever it showed. And it was, like, the best show ever. And but Caterpie was my very first Pokemon I ever saw, so there you go. Little Caterpie.
What was the first Pokemon game you ever played?
Crystal, which was funny because my parents hated Pokemon. They didn't like it. They didn't like how obsessed I was with it, but I kind of begged and I pleaded and I pleaded, and so my 9th birthday, I got Crystal, and I remember hugging my mother because I was so excited. Because, again, it was the first Pokemon game, and plus that was the first Pokemon game where you could be a girl. Because I didn't want to be a boy. I mean, I was a 9-year-old girl. I didn't want to be... I'm a 24-year-old girl, and I still don't want to be a boy when I play video games. I want to be a girl. So Crystal was my very first game.
Awesome. And who was your first starter Pokemon?
Chikorita. So Chikorita is my favorite starter. I know a lot of people don't like Chikorita. They think she's not that great. And I'm like, listen, my Meganium always kicks butt, so whatevs. And whenever I play Crystal or Heart Gold and Soul Silver, to this day, I cannot do Totodile and Cyndaquil. I really should, but every time I'm like, nope, Chikorita. Chikorita's my girl. My home girl.
All right. Who's your favorite Pokemon?
So that's a harder one. When I was a kid, my favorite was Ninetales. Just because I like foxes, and I just thought that, she looked so classy, and she looked so glamorous. And my best friend was Vaporeon. But as I continued on with life, and I really started appreciating water Pokemon, and Vaporeon became my favorite.
And so, what is your favorite Pokemon type?
Water. Water Pokemon, the flying Pokemon are a close second. I enjoy flying Pokemon a lot, and dark type as well, but water is always my favorite, which makes sense since Misty's my favorite character from the anime. But I just like water Pokemon. There's so many. They're so varied. I mean, you have so many different typings as well with water types, so they're my favorites.
All right. What was your favorite Pokemon game or generation?
My favorite game is Soul Silver, which then means my favorite generation is Generation 2. I mean, it helps that it was my first generation, so obviously it has that nostalgia factor, but comparatively to Generation 1, which, while it was a good game, had issues, Gen 2 was a superior sequel. It was the sequel every sequel should be. It fixed many problems. It brought in so many great new things like breeding and daytime versus nighttime, and so many awesome things, brought so many awesome things to the table. So Gen 2 is always going to be my favorite. With that, a little bit is Gen 4, just because of the Gen 2 remakes. I miss having Pokemon follow me around. I loved having my little itty bitty Dragonite. That's really actually much taller than me, but it's a little itty bitty Dragonite. It's super cute. I miss that.
All right. So, which region do you consider to be your hometown?
See, that one's also a little bit hard. I mean, automatically it is Johto, just because, again, that was my first one. But I enjoy a lot of the regions. I really enjoy Kalos. I liked Kalos a lot as a region because it was so big and so varied. You had a little bit of everything in Kalos. But Johto I love because the region is so historied. There's so many different areas there. And everything is so obscure and yet so explained, like the ruins of Alf. You have no idea why they're there, but they're there, and you get to explore around them. You get to learn about the history of the unknown, and it's really cool. You get places like Ekritik that are just so steeped in history, and to me, there's just nothing else like that in the Pokemon games.
All right, who's your favorite character from the games?
I feel like this is going to be a very Johto centric interview. It really is. This one was hard, just because a lot of my favorite characters from the games are gym leaders or champions like Cynthia. Like, I adore Cynthia, but she is probably Elite Four, so I can't use her. I'm gonna go through my favorite rival and say Silver. Or as I always called him, Tom, because there's a guy named Tom that I hated when I was a kid, so he's just Tom. If you're listening to this, Tom, I still hate you. Not really, I'm over it. We were in second grade, I'm over it. But what I liked about Silver was you had Blue. I mean, yeah, Blue was a meanie. He was a terrible person, but I mean, he was just like your schoolyard bully. I mean, he sucked, but I mean, he wasn't like an evil character. Silver brought that in a little bit. I mean, he stole a Pokemon, which was a big deal when I was a kid. I'm like, he stole a Pokemon. Oh my god. But then as you continue on the games through him, you learn a little more about him, especially in Soul Silver and Heart Gold. If you do the Celebi special event, you get go back into the past and see him with Giovanni, who, spoiler alert, is his dad. Spoiler tag, hashtag. And what I really liked is, for example, he had a Zubat. And, he always talked about how Pokemon weren't his friends, they were tools to be used, and as you started to fight him more and more, and you always beat him, he kind of started to realize maybe that was wrong, and in the end, when you fight him for the last bit, he has a Crobat. And you can only evolve a Crobat if they have a good relationship with you, if they like you, if they trust you. And I enjoyed that was a fun little note from the creator noting how he had changed. Was he had a Crobat versus just a Golbat. So I always thought that was a cool touch. So I'm really sorry, this is a very Johto-centric, okay. But it's where I spend most of my time, and I love Johto, and I think Silver was a very good rival and a really good character.
All right, who's your favorite Gym Leader / Elite Four member?
Okay, so I'm going to do both of these. So Elite Four member is Cynthia, the champion. Cynthia was kind of inspiring to me because I've kind of fell out of Pokemon. In Gen 3, I got back into it with Pearl and Diamond. And when you're a girl in who is a video gamer, there's not a lot of great big female characters for you to look up into. I mean, there are a few, you have occasional ones here and there, but there aren't a lot. And a lot of, they're weak, they're not seen as very, they're not strong, they're weak, they're kind of oh no, oh, this is happening to me, oh no, what could it possibly go wrong here? Cynthia was strong. She was smart, she was knowledgeable, she was constantly going out on quests to find out answers, and that was inspiring to me. Plus, she was difficult to defeat. That team is still one of the hardest ones to beat. I mean, her Garchomp, she had the Spiritomb. I mean, it was ridiculous. As for gym leader, I really like Elisa, the electric gym leader from Gen 5, and that's because I misjudged her. When the information about Gen 5 came out and we got that she was going to be a supermodel, my initial thought was, oh no, I can't, Pokemon, why are you doing this to me? Because again, I expected her, and I was my judgment on my own part. I mean, let's face it, I went with the stereotype. I figured that was what she was going to be, and I should have known better from Pokemon. I should have. Thought she was going to be some airheaded bubblegum pop princess, supermodel, and instead what I got was two totally awesome gyms. One being the roller coaster, the other one being a runway, which was really cool. And she wasn't a airheaded bubblegum pop princess. She was funny. She was hard to beat. Her Emolga was the worst. Double team all over the place, and I'm just sitting there like, how do I hit you, you cute, adorable flying thing? How do I kill you? And when she stood up in Black and White, when she stood up for Bianca over her father, I thought that was a very cool moment in Pokemon history. So, it's a hard choice because there's so many I love, but she's definitely, I think, my favorite gym leader.
Okay. Who's your favorite evil team, and what's your least favorite evil team?
So I'm going to have to give it to Team Rocket for my favorite team, because there are many aspects that, of course, we know them all from the anime, so that does kind of color it, but just from the games alone, they're the team we got to spend the most time with. That helps. But they're also the team we got to see change the most. It was, we got to see them with their leader, without their leader, kind of scrambled, trying to figure out what's going on. And, I mean, they had the clearest world domination. That was it. They weren't trying to go to the stars. They weren't trying to make the world more beautiful. They weren't trying to do all of these just really crazy, weird things that I'm sitting here like, what are you doing? Seriously now, what are you doing? They were a team that I could see in the real world. Maybe not to the not in a different circumstances, of course, but I could see that easily in the real world. And with that, my least favorite team is Team Flare from Gen 6. If Team Flare had a more focused goal, I could get behind them. But to make the world more beautiful is kind of a vague, I mean, it really depends on what you think is beautiful. Like, if I think that flowers are beautiful, so in my head, to make the world more beautiful is we plant more flowers and less concrete jungles. I mean, maybe to you, concrete jungles are more beautiful. I mean, that's just so subjective. It's not a very clear and concise plan. So to me, Team Flare was just kind of silly.
All right. So besides the main video game, is there any other video games that you played or any other Pokemon things that you enjoy?
So I haven't played much outside of the main continuity of Pokemon. I did not have a GameCube or a Wii or anything like that, so I didn't really get to play Coliseum or Gale of Darkness or anything like that. I mean, my friends had them, I played them when I went to their house, and they were fun, but I just didn't have the means or the method, so it was kind of out of my jurisdiction for that. I mean, when I was a kid, I loved the anime, I loved the cartoon, I thought it was the best thing in the world, so with that, I still love the movies. I don't watch them. I watch them on Netflix if they're there, and I actually do own Spell of the Unknown. I do own that on DVD, and I'll watch that, so it is my favorite, because again, it's in Johto, which I love. But I also really like that one because it was, the little girl who, dreamed of being a Pokemon trainer. In her dream, she became a Pokemon trainer. I thought her crystal Pokemon were so cool. I wanted that so bad. It's one of the reasons why the Ampharos line is one of my favorites. Also because Mega Ampharos is just gorgeous. But, with his long flowing hair, the Fabio of the Pokemon world. But that's why my dream is to have a shiny, perfect Ampharos that I can name Fabio. Mega Evolve, just his long, beautiful hair. Anyway, not on topic, but that's one of the reasons why I love it is because it was featured so heavily in Spell of the Unknown, and why Apom, I love Apom, so heavily featured in Spell of the Unknown. So, mostly I've enjoyed the cartoon. Again, don't watch much these days. If it's on TV, I'll watch it, be like, oh, look, nostalgia and memories. But most of my Pokemon experience has been in the main continuity games.
Okay. All right. So since you've been on the podcast before, we're going to skip about the anime.
Yeah, we've talked about the anime.
But let's talk about Pokemon the First Movie.
All right.
So, where was the first place you ever saw Pokemon the First Movie?
I actually saw it in theaters, either when I was in elementary school or middle school. I have to look up to what year did it come out?
It came out 1999.
Hold on, let me do the math. I was 8, so I would have been in like 3rd or 4th grade. Probably 3rd grade. I saw it in theaters. My brother took me, which was funny because I know he took me because he was visiting from college. My parents didn't want to go see it. So they said, here, Matt, take your sister. And he did. He was a good sport about it. He was good about it.
All right. What was your favorite scene from the movie?
And that's hard. It's such a good movie. It's tied between two.
Okay.
The first one is, I'm sure it's the stereotypical answer, but it's when all of the Pokemon are crying and they bring Ash back. I just remember that scene vividly as a child, just like crying on the inside, hysterically just dying. And I mean, it was just really sweet and it was so emotional. And with Pokemon, we never really gotten that emotional before. Like in the cartoon, they touched on emotions, but not like really super into it. And that was by far the most emotional Pokemon ever gotten. And you know, being a child, emotions hit hard really, really fast. So I absolutely adored that scene as a child. As an adult, my favorite scene is anything with Mew, because Mew is just... Mew is hilarious. Mew just doesn't care. Mew is just there to have a good time, to bounce on bubbles, to fall down the windmill, and he or she or it is just such a little prankster. I just love any scene with Mew in it. And actually, fun story. When I went to see it in theaters, this is off topic, but I just remembered it. I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. They didn't play Pokemon at first. They started playing the Nutty Professor. And we had to go in and we had to find an employee and be like, yo, you're playing the wrong movie in Theater 12. I very clearly remember it starts off, with, if I remember this correctly, again, I was 8. If I remember this correctly, 8 or 7. The Nutty Professor starts off with a view of like some landscape and a zoom in and it's like real landscape, so I'm like, this doesn't make sense, this isn't a cartoon. So the first movie just had lots of memories in my head, lots of weird funny memories.
Alright, how has Pokemon influenced your life?
So I think what's really great about Pokemon is that it's been something I've enjoyed my entire life, because honestly a lot of the stuff that you love as a kid you look back on fondly, but you don't love it to that extent. Like, for example, at the top of my head, Powerpuff Girls. I loved Powerpuff Girls when I was a little girl. Bubbles was my spirit animal. To this day, I still love Bubbles. And while I look back at Powerpuff Girls, and I'll watch it on Netflix occasionally, I don't have that same love as I did when I was a kid. While with Pokemon, it's been an almost constant love my entire life. I did, like most people, kind of fall out of it with 3rd gen when I was in middle school. But then in high school, when Pearl came out, I was like, alright, I'll try it. It's Pokemon. I know what it is. I'll try it. And all of a sudden, this world was opened up for me again. And I was just reminded of how amazing and how wonderful it was. And I very clearly remember my parents being like, oh no, I thought she was done with this. I thought we were done with Pokemon. It's like, yep, nope, sorry. We are still on Pokemon. And so it's just been something from my childhood that even as an adult I can still enjoy, which you really can't say about a lot of stuff. And I really honestly hope that Pokemon continues and that I can enjoy it when I hit 30, when I hit 40, when I hit 50. I mean, goodness, I plan on maybe one day getting a Pokemon tattoo to immortalize it on my body as a way of just saying, this is how much you have been to me. Pokemon tattoo. I am actually legitimately planning one out. So it's just been something that I can enjoy. It's just been something that it's hard to enjoy something as an adult, as a child in the same place, and it's something that I can enjoy. It's just something that I can embrace.
All right, what do you want to see Pokemon do in the next 20 years?
Oh, that's a hard one. You sprung that one on me. I just want to keep seeing them grow. I want to see them. I want to see them bring back some of their older features, like, for example, in a Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I know it's hard now with so many Pokemon. I loved it when my Pokemon followed me. It was the best thing ever. I hope they expand on some more of the features in the games, like in Gen 6 in X and Y. Riding a goat was super cool. Now I want to ride other Pokemon. I was honestly hoping I could, like, ride a Rapidash or ride a Charizard or, you know, something along those lines. I like that Lapras had her own surf animation. That was really cool. Now, if I surf on a Mantine, show me surfing on a giant manta ray. That is what I want. I just hope that they keep true to themselves. They don't. What's great about Pokemon is that they don't try to be anybody else. Not really. They keep true to themselves. I mean, obviously they change with the generation, with the kids, and they change. But they've stayed true to what the original point of the story was. Just be you on an adventure, meeting all of these strange and wonderful creatures, and having adventures with them. That's what I hope they stay as.
Cool. All right, thank you, Sayako.
Hey, no problem. This was awesome. I can always talk about Pokemon. Hard questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and we'll go on to our next interview. I'm here with YB.
Hi.
Are you ready? Are you excited about this?
Of course. It's
Yeah?
Pokemon.
You talking about Pokemon?
I could talk about Pokemon all day.
All right. So then let's get started. So our first question is, where did you first hear about Pokemon?
That's honestly like a hard question because I was like maybe like 3 years old when I first got thrown into video games in general, and one of my first video games was a Pokemon game. So I was teeny tiny baby. I probably couldn't even read. I was just like, oh, look at the monsters beating each other up. That's awesome.
All right. So here's my question. What was your first Pokemon game?
My first legitimate Pokemon game with battling and all that fun stuff was Pokemon Blue for the Game Boy Advance.
Wow, very cool.
Yes,
Okay.
and then I also had Yellow at about the exact same time, and then if you count it, I also had Pokemon Snap and Stadium on the 64.
Wow, okay. All right. So who was your first starter Pokemon?
Blastoise.
Oh, so you started with Squirtle. Okay.
Yes.
Why Squirtle?
I don't know. I guess because, I don't know, water types appealed to me at the time. I thought it was an intermediate level, you know. Bulbasaur is the hardest to start with. Charmander's the easiest to start with. I didn't want to be a cop-out, so I was like, you know, Squirtle, why not? Let's go kick some butt, little turtle.
All right. So who's your favorite Pokemon?
Sandshrew.
Sandshrew. Okay.
Judge me.
Why Sandshrew?
He's so cute. He's just
I'm not denying this fact.
He's just got those big blue eyes, and he's adorable. And I had a Sandshrew, and his name was Toby. Because I'm that person that names their Pokemon, and I loved him. But from an actual gameplay standpoint, instead of just cuteness aside, I have a Blaziken who I decimate everyone with. So so I'd have to pick Blaziken from a fighting standpoint.
Okay. All right. What's your favorite Pokemon type?
Unfortunately for me, my favorite types are rock and ground, even though they get destroyed no matter what you're using. But
unless you're using fire types.
Unless you're using fire types, but still. Fire types have fighting moves also, and they also have whatever, like, what's it called? Not Fennekin. The final stage of Fennekin. I can't think of what it's called because I named mine.
Delphox.
Delphox, thank you. Delphox can learn psychic moves. So if I have a rock type or a ground type, this is done. It's over.
You go through the Pokedex in my head. All right. So what was your favorite Pokemon generation?
I mean, you gotta love first gen.
Okay.
How can
First
you
gen.
how can you not love first gen?
Okay. All right.
But why can't I think of what gen number it was? Mudkip's generation.
Generation 3.
Yes, okay, I thought so. Generation 3 was also very good. But I gotta say for Gen 5 was very hit or miss with every single Pokemon.
I agree.
Cause like you have awesome Pokemon like Scolipede, who were fantastic. And then you have Vanilla Ice.
Oh, we talked about that previously.
Oh my goodness. Klefki makes me angry.
He's not that bad.
Makes me angry.
He's not that
A
bad.
keychain shouldn't kill a dragon.
It's true. It's a true statement. It's a true statement. Okay. So which region would you consider to be your home region?
Either Kanto or Kalos, honestly.
Okay. All right.
And I would also say Johto, but I never actually sat down and played the Johto games all the way through. I know. I'm fired. I'm fired.
Best game.
I know they were. I love them from a distance.
Oh.
I never got the chance.
Oh. All right. So why Kanto? Why Kalos?
I mean, Kanto, it's the first region. That's the one that everybody connected with first. That's the one that everyone sunk in the Pokemon with. They became a part of it, and you know, it becomes a part of you too.
Right.
And as for the Kalos region, I genuinely enjoyed X and Y. I gotta say, I really liked what they were trying to do with X and Y. Everything that happened, I enjoyed it. I liked it.
All right. So, do you have a favorite non-gym leader or Elite Four character in the game?
I don't know. I don't really pay attention to the NPCs that much. I'm focused on going through and getting my badges.
That's
I mean,
true.
I guess that one girl with the twin tails from X and Y with the brown hair. I can't think of her name at all right now. She totally has a tiny crush on your character.
Iris?
I don't think it's
With the
Iris.
big long purple hair?
No,
Okay.
brown hair.
Brown hair. Serena? No.
Maybe.
Serena is from
No.
Kalos.
Yeah. She's the, if you're a guy, your counterpart person.
Right.
She's a generic NPC that is there, well, not generic, she's part of the main storyline. She's there no matter what gender your person is.
Okay.
And you go into the mansion with her, and you have to catch that guy's, whatever, the poodle one. Yeah, you can see her, can't you? I don't remember her name.
Tien, Serena, Tien, crap, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
the one you see the fireworks with.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Her.
That girl.
She
wow,
has
we're totally
that-
Pokemon fans.
I
here.
love Pokemon.
We're both big Pokemon fans. We can't even remember them. Serena.
We're never gonna remember her name.
Shauna.
Shauna, yes!
Yes, Shauna.
Shauna is my favorite NPC.
Shauna. Okay. Alright. I'll probably edit that.
Clearly she's my favorite since I remembered her name.
Shauna. That's right. Okay. So, who is your favorite gym leader and or Elite Four member?
It is between Cynthia,
Okay.
for obvious reasons.
Okay.
Cynthia, she was
Cynthia's
awesome.
awesome.
She was so cool. And then, Diantha from Kalos.
Okay.
I liked fighting her because it was the first time you fought someone with Mega Evolutions.
Okay.
And she kicked my butt the first time. Because I went in there with a Tyrantrum, and she brought out her Aurorus, and it was a one hit. I wasn't ready. It was so bad.
Alright. So, what is your favorite evil team and what is your least favorite evil team?
I don't know, man. I, probably just because of the show, I love Team Rocket.
Okay.
And then, least favorite? I'm not really sure. I haven't, had much experience with all the other teams as much as the other ones.
The consensus has been so far Team Flare.
I can see why. That's understandable.
I agree. I don't even care for Team Flare either, but, you know. I like their leader, Lestrade, but...
Yes.
Alright. Besides the main video game, what other Pokemon things are you into? This could be video games, it could be non-video games, it could be whatever.
Video games.
Okay.
Duh.
Okay.
I used to draw Pokemon a lot.
Okay.
What else? I collected cards briefly, but I gave them away to someone. I gave them to my brother, who is now obsessed with Pokemon cards. And I'm glad that I passed that obsession on to him. He loves Pokemon. He's 6, and he doesn't shut up about them, and I'm very proud.
Alright. Any other of the like offshoot games or side games or spin-off games that you like?
Mystery Dungeon.
Mystery Dungeon?
Mystery Dungeon is so much fun. I had Blue and Red. One of them got stolen, so I got the other one as a replacement. And then I had Time and Sky. And even though I knew it was going to be alright in the end, I cried at both endings like a baby.
Alright. This is probably going to be very self-explanatory, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Have you ever watched the anime?
Gee, I don't know. What was that guy's name? Rock? Yes.
So yes, you have. Okay.
I have.
Who is your favorite character? And it could be human or Pokemon or both.
How can I pick one? I love Brock, I love Misty, and I love Dawn.
Okay.
I loved Dawn as a character. She was very, I don't know, I just liked her a lot. She brought this air to the group. Mm-hmm. And then they brought Brock back that season 2, which was like, yes! Brock is amazing.
Alright, any Pokemon that you like? Specifically?
James is Weepinbell.
Okay, alright. Okay. Alright. I'm gonna add two surprise questions for you.
Alright.
Okay? So, have you ever watched Pokémon the First Movie?
Yes.
Okay. Alright. What was your favorite scene from Pokémon the First Movie?
Oh man, it was so long ago that all I remember is the traumatic part.
Oh, everyone remembers the traumatic part.
For obvious reasons, it scarred us. We all cried.
Right.
That's literally the only part I remember, and I remember like Mewtwo breaking out. That's all I remember.
Okay.
And I guess Mewtwo breaking out would be my favorite part because that was awesome, and he's like the coolest, the coolest.
All right. So, how has Pokemon influenced your life?
Pokemon has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, and it has been an outlet, and I suppose a resource in a way for making friends and having these connections with, even though they're computer simulations, they're friends in a way. They're there for you, you know. You have your buddies, you go out with your team, you go kick some butt. You got your friends there with you. They're companions for, like, kids who can't have pets. They have their Pokemon with them. And, you know, that means a lot to some people who can't have that.
Alright, cool. And last question. What do you see Pokemon doing in the next 20 years?
It can go one of two ways.
Okay, alright.
They can make more Pokemon like Klefki and Vanilla Ice. Or they can start making some good old Pokemon like they used to. And hopefully they won't integrate more unneeded types. Because the balancing system is off now. So maybe if they do integrate a type, hopefully they'll fix that. But my main hope is that they do evolutions of every type. That's what everyone wants.
Alright,
That's
awesome.
what I want.
I want a dragon type.
I want a ghost type.
Ooh.
It'd be so cute and cool.
Alright, cool. Well, thank you very much.
Anytime.
Alright.
Pikachu!
This is Doug. Say hello, Doug.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
All right, and he, as well as myself, is a big Pokemon fan. So I'm gonna interview him for our 20th anniversary podcast. So here we go. Where did you first hear about Pokemon?
It was, I believe, when I was in high school. I was in high school at the time, and everyone's been playing this card game called Pokemon, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? This is kind of weird. So I saw how Pokemon became huge. Like, kids would go crazy for these cards, and then after that, it just burst onto the scene of games. So, I mean, like a video game. So I think it was the time when I was in high school, I see, like kids playing with these cards, and then everyone else was playing it too. Like, my freshman friends and everyone else. So it's pretty interesting when I saw that when I was in high school.
Awesome. All right. So what was the first Pokemon game you ever played?
Oh, my goodness. We're going to go into the vault here. I would have to say my very first experience, my first Pokemon game would have to be Pokemon Diamond on the DS.
That was the
I
first.
think that was like my very first.
That was the first Pokemon game you ever played? Wow.
I think so because I played I think I played on I think like either Pokemon Red or Pokemon Blue, like when I was working at GameStop at the time, just trying it out a little bit. But like actually like getting into the Pokemon games, it was Diamond that really was like solidifying me to play this game of Pokemon. So that's what got me into it.
Okay. So piggybacking onto that, well, who was your first starter?
Ooh, I wish I could remember. I think it was any. If it was a fire type, that was my starter one.
It was Chimchar then.
Yeah, Chimchar was my main man. Was the main monkey.
Okay.
Chimchar.
Right. All right. So, who is your favorite Pokemon?
Okay, here we go. I mean, it's hard to choose on which one I like, but I think if I have to sound generic, it would have to be Pikachu. You can't go wrong with Pikachu. Pikachu has always been like the staple of what Pokemon is all about. I mean, you gotta love Pikachu.
Okay, all right. So, piggybacking onto that, what is your favorite type of Pokemon?
Anything fire type. I use fire type any Pokemon game that you could think of. If it has to do a fire type, that's my Pokemon.
Oh, all right, cool. All right. So, what is your favorite Pokemon generation or Pokemon game?
Ooh, okay. I think right now my favorite of all right now that I'm playing on the 3DS, which I have to jump back into playing, is Pokemon Y. Because for the first time ever, it was on the 3DS. Not to mention, we see Mega Evolutions, and that was really cool to see like a Mega evolved form of Lucario. That was like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. So I would say Pokemon Y would have to be my favorite.
All right, cool. All right, so we know that you didn't start with the original games, but what region would you consider to be your hometown?
I don't know. That's a very, very good question. Like, region. I would have to say, I think like Sinnoh region, like Diamond and Pearl, the Sinnoh region.
That's not a bad choice. It's not a bad choice at all.
Yeah, I would have to say Sinnoh if I had to choose one. I mean, I haven't jumped into a lot of it, but I think for Diamond and Pearl, the Sinnoh region would be pretty cool.
Now, do you have a favorite character from any of the games? Non gym leader or Elite Four?
Not gym leader. Oh my goodness. I don't know. I mean, I think my favorite character in the games. Well, I don't know. I think there's a lot of favorites, but I don't know if my favorite would have to be like if you would say like any of the town folk, like maybe Nurse Joy would have to be, because everywhere you go, any town you go to, there's always a Nurse Joy. That's like, I don't know if they're separated at birth or they make a factory of Nurse Joys all over the towns, but I think I would say Nurse Joy. I would say for me.
Okay, so who is your favorite gym leader or Elite Four member?
I would have to say, if we're going to go back in the day, I would say it was the gym leader that I had to fight in Pokemon Y, who had a Lucario. I think that was it. I think if that was the gym leader.
Karina. Her name's Karina.
Karina, yeah.
Yeah. She's really cool. I just watched the episode with her and X and Y. So yeah, she's really cool.
Oh, okay.
All right. Any Elite Four members that you like?
I haven't dealt with any of the Elite Four, so I'm sorry if I couldn't answer that question. So I'm really not too sure.
Okay. Now, every generation of Pokemon game has an evil team you have to fight. Do you have a favorite evil team, or do you have a least favorite evil team?
Well, if you have to go for the classics, you always have to go with Team Rocket. Team Rocket has been like the most crazy, like the most out there, just like evil team that's there. I would have to say you have to go with the classics. You have to go with Team Rocket the most. Least favorite, was it Team Phasma? I think it was those futuristic villains from from Pokemon. I think it was Pokemon Y. the futuristic ones with those weird glasses and everything. I would say those are like my favorite.
That was Team Flare.
Team Flare, yeah, Team Flare, I would say.
Okay. All right. All right. Besides the main video games, is there anything that else Pokemon related that you like or play, or any of the spin-off games, or any of the card games, or anything like that you're into?
Does the movies count for some of them?
Yeah, sure.
All right, I would say this confession, true story. Me and my little cousin, we went to the movies, and we went to see Pokémon the First Movie in theaters, and it was like unbelievable. It was so amazing. I even bought the Pokémon the First Movie soundtrack.
It's a good soundtrack.
Like, it's a good soundtrack, yes. I remembered that. And I remembered when Burger King used to carry the Poké-balls that you can clamp onto it, and you get, like, when you open it up, you get a Pokemon. I got a little Poliwhirl, so it was pretty cool. But
Okay.
I was into that Pokemon game. I think I've seen people play, like, Pokemon Snap, or the Puzzle League was very challenging.
Oh, cool. I haven't heard Puzzle League yet. I've heard that's a really fun game.
But the one Pokemon game that I'm enjoying is Pokemon Shuffle.
Yeah.
That is the most challenging Pokemon type puzzle game I've ever played, and that was the most challenging, but it was a lot of fun.
Okay. So I think you've pretty much already answered this question, but I'll go ahead and ask it anyways. Have you ever watched the anime?
Yes, I have. I've watched from the very first one, and then I watched a couple of episodes from other seasons of the show.
Okay, do you have a favorite character? It could be human, or it could be Pokemon, or it could be both.
If you had to pick I'd like to pick my favorite. It has to be Brock. Brock always tries his best to get with the girls, but either Misty would grab him by the ear and cart him away, or Krogug will punch him in the gut and just move him out of the way. You have to give it for him. He tries so hard to get with the ladies, but always fails.
All right. Well, he actually is the longest companion of all the companions, so that's cool.
Absolutely.
Now, do you have a favorite Pokemon that you like?
From the show, okay, my favorite Pokemon, I would have to say, I think if you really like, and I think it's really cool, I think right now, like, my favorite would definitely be, like, Lucario. Lucario, when you saw him in one of the movies, he was very much of a psychic type, but he's also a fighter as well. So Lucario has been, like, a strong, psychic type, fighter type of Pokemon, so I really go for Lucario.
Cool. Very good choice. All right. How has Pokemon influenced your life?
I think Pokemon has influenced my life in a lot of ways. Like, I remember when I bought Pokemon Y, and I bring it to, like, my friends, and we'd be like, let's do this, Pokemon battles all around, let's go. It was really, really cool. I mean, Pokemon has really changed a lot of ways, and for what it's been worth, it's been one of the most predominant, long-running series of all time. And I think to a lot of people, it changed my life in many ways for me talking to, like, say, people who like the same things that I do. I mean, I do enjoy Pokemon occasionally from time to time and whenever I need to, but I think now with Pokemon becoming as big as it is, I think it's changed me in a lot of ways and makes it, meeting up with a lot of great people, meeting up with Ubernerd 527 and everybody else who's part of the whole thing. It's been a really, really amazing ride.
Awesome, and it's actually kind of neat to meet somebody who isn't as I call it, an OG, original generation.
Right.
'Cause I'm an OG. But it's kind of neat to meet somebody who played it a little later in the game, and that's kind of interesting. All right. Next we have what do you want to see Pokemon do in the next 20 years?
Well, what can Pokemon do for the next 20 years? I mean, we got the Poké Tournament coming out for the Wii U very soon. I wouldn't be surprised if we go to another place in Pokemon. I mean, if they could do something of a Pokemon game on the Wii U, like remember Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness? You know, I've been dying to try out that game to go into that same RPG style.
It's a good game.
Or maybe do like say everyone's been waiting to hear Detective Pikachu. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but we'll have to see how that goes. But in the next 20 years, I think Pokemon should jumping into the consoles and really start to give people like Pokemon like a Pokemon Stadium 2 or another kind of like game where people can play multiplayer wise. If I see it on the Wii U or the 3DS, I think that's going to be huge.
Awesome. Any other Pokemon memories that you want to share with our listeners or anything like that?
I think just that when I was with my cousin and he loved the movie when we went to see it actually in theaters rather than on DVD or Blu-ray. I mean, watching it in the theaters with my cousin was a really great joy. And, we had a great time watching it. We had a blast. So it was a lot of fun.
Great. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much, Doug, for the interview. And stay tuned for more, guys, as we jump through our 20th anniversary podcast. Say goodbye to the people,
All right.
Doug.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye. Danny the Ultrasonic Player. I'm very excited that you're here, Mr. Danny.
Yep, thanks, man. Glad to be here.
All right, so let's get off with the questions now. So let's start off with the first question. Now, the first question is, where did you first hear about Pokemon?
Well, for me, I actually heard about Pokemon actually through a mixture of different things. It was actually more like from advertisements and commercials. But the funny thing is that it didn't have anything to do with the games directly. It actually was, this little, I'm not sure what you can call it, but I guess it was sort of like the Pokemon version of the Tamagotchi game. And with Pikachu, of course, being highlighted as the main one. And so it was sort of like Pikachu and a Tamagotchi one. So where you basically, like most of those Tamagotchi games, you take care of your pet and all that good jazz. And that was pretty much it. That was my first exposure to what Pokemon was. And it was actually just a short time later, and I'm not exactly sure how long specifically. I think it might have been just either a few weeks or a few months after, that I would actually come home from school, specifically on Wednesdays, because after all, the beauty of short days, you get to leave early. I remember coming home and actually seeing one of an episode of this show that I didn't know or hear anything about. But it was actually, sadly, it was the tail end of the episode. So I didn't really get a chance to see the whole thing. But I'll never forget it. It was basically where you had these three characters walking down the road, and one of the characters was looking at the sign, and it said, Gary was here, Ash is a loser. And then, of course, cue Ash's, meltdown and just, him flipping. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. And then, after that episode ended, I was introduced to this really, really awesome, theme music, which really harkened back to the good old cartoons from the 80s and early 90s, where you just had this really big, epic type of theme song. And it was just something really cool, and I didn't really know what it was. And then when it said Pokemon, I'm like, that sounds pretty interesting. And so through that, that's when I started hearing more about it. And then, some of my classmates were all completely insane over these games that had come out for the Game Boy called Pokemon. But the funny thing about it was that there were two versions, not just one, which is really strange. Because usually when video games get released, you see only one. Of course, granted, nowadays, we're all kind of spoiled because, there's the regular versions. There's, when it comes to video games, there's regular versions you buy at GameStop, and then there's, of course, variants which come with all kinds of different things. So it was pretty interesting how I got introduced to the Pokemon phenomenon and whatnot.
Great. All right, second question. What was your first Pokemon game you ever played?
Okay, well...
this is main series game, by the way.
Yeah, the main one. Basically, interestingly enough, it was actually blue. It wasn't any red. It was actually blue. with a picture of Blastoise, and I actually got a chance to play it for the first time because a cousin of mine, or should I say my next generation cousin, he had a Game Boy with Pokemon Blue, and I was curious as to what it was, and so I just went ahead and just tried it, and it was something very different. It definitely had the RPG elements that you would come to expect out of the best RPG games, but there was something different about it. Like it wasn't your typical RPG type thing. Like it was, yet it wasn't. And now I can't remember exactly which. So basically it was pretty much Pokemon Blue.
Okay.
And as soon as I played it, I'm like, wow, this is. I could get into this, and that was the game that just took a big bite, and I became an instant fan.
All right, who was your first starter Pokemon?
Well, my first starter Pokemon. Basically, okay, the Pokemon Blue aside. I would say my first starter Pokemon was basically Pikachu. Because, and the reason why I say that is because when I played my cousin's Pokemon game, he already had a save file and whatnot, so I just played that. While I can't remember specifically what Pokemon I had used for that one, I know that when I bought my own, it was basically Pikachu. And, of course, there's only one game that we all know gives you Pikachu as your starter, which was Pokemon Yellow, the special Pikachu edition, as they call it. So yeah, it was pretty much basically the mascot and the face of Pokemon itself, Pikachu.
All right. So who is your favorite Pokemon?
For my favorite, it would basically be Charizard, hands down. And I think it really had to do with the show, which we'll talk about later, but there was just something about Charmander specifically. I mean, granted, Squirtle and Bulbasaur were pretty cool, but there was just something about Charmander. And then, of course, as Charmander would evolve, it almost became like more tougher, more cooler, and more cooler than Bulbasaur's and Squirtle's evolved forms would eventually become. But there was just something about just again Charmander's evolution that just made it look like that's a starter Pokemon. Now, granted, I mean, as those who played the original games know, Charmander may not necessarily be the most ideal, but as we find out later on, both in the games and in other media, the training a Charmander, to eventually become Charmeleon and then Charizard, can really pay off. And although it's not, and even though that Pokemon is not necessarily a legendary one, but when it's fully evolved and you train that Pokemon well, when you train Charizard well, you could almost fool anybody.
All right. So, what is your favorite Pokemon type?
Well, that's kind of a tough one because there's just something about each of the types that seem to stand out. But if I have to narrow it down, it would pretty much be the flying types. Because there's just something about being able to just get on a giant Pokemon that can fly and just being able to fly to any destination you want to. Because you can't beat that. I mean, granted, you got your other types like water types and whatnot, like Lapras or Gyarados, but there's just something about being able to fly on a flying Pokemon. Specifically, one like Pidgeot, for me, they're just being able to just fly and just go wherever you want to, and nobody can tell you otherwise. Plus, it's kind of alluded to that in certain, I guess in a certain movie where Pidgeot could basically fly through pretty much the toughest winds like nothing. So that's like, okay, all right. So at least you can fly through a hurricane and not have to worry too much.
All right. What was your favorite Pokemon generation? There are 6 generations. Generation 1 being red, blue, yellow. Generation 2 being gold, silver, crystal. Generation 3 being ruby, sapphire, and emerald. Generation 4 being diamond, pearl, and platinum. Generation 5 being black, white, black and white 2, black and white 1, black and white, black and white 2, and then X and Y was Generation 6.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's easy. Basically, Generation 2, Pokemon Silver. And the reason why I say that is because as great as Generation 1 was, Generation 2 just took it a step further. Because what was great about Gold and Silver, or in my case, Silver, what was great about those games was that they took everything that we loved about the first 3 games, and it just improved on it and built up on it in such a way to where all of a sudden it just not only improved, but it also gave the Pokemon a little more personality. To where now it's no longer just you catch them and that's it. There's times where if you get to where there's at least one character in the game where when you talk to them, they will look at your Pokemon, specifically the one you have at the top of the list, and that character can tell you if what that Pokemon's mood is and how he or she feels about you. And speaking of which, that was another nice little addition to where this time, instead of making the Pokemon, basically genderless, with the exception of the Nidorans, this time all the Pokemon pretty much had some kind of specific gender. The only one that really didn't was, of course, Ditto. And I'm guessing it's because, I guess copying pretty much makes it kind of ambiguous in that regard. But for the most part, pretty much every single Pokemon was either a male or female. Of course, the only exceptions to that were, of course, the Nidorans. But besides them, it was a nice little addition. And on top of that, things were a lot more detailed in the game. So now you could actually see more things going on. Certain characters stood out a little bit more. And also you could and also sometimes when you certain Pokemon actually started to have more details to them, so where it no longer looked like, oh, there's this, and granted you only knew what Pokemon it was just by the name, but you couldn't tell by the look. So and also just the idea of being able to actually keep track of time and having to switch back and forth between daylight savings time, and also not only that, but you also had to kind of be even more meticulous in how you caught your Pokemon. Because this time, it wasn't just a matter of going to a certain location to find a certain Pokemon. It was also knowing when to catch them. Because sometimes some Pokemon would only appear, during the morning, whereas some would only appear only at night. So you really had to kind of start using your head and try to really plan out how to catch a certain Pokemon. So, and speaking of catching Pokemon, there was also a certain character named Kurt who actually knew how to be able to, who could make you custom Pokeballs, which could be used to catch certain specific types of Pokemon, which was actually a nice little touch. So, and at that point, it was just a matter of knowing, okay, I need to get this kind of Pokemon, I need to get this kind of Pokeball for this kind of Pokemon, and so it was just a matter of getting the right material that you needed, or in this case, the right apricot, I believe that's the name, getting the right apricots that you could then bring to Kurt so he could make you the custom Pokeball for you. Right. So it was just, in general, just a lot of things. And on top of that, not only were you, granted, you were traveling through a different region, which was way different than what you were traveling through in the original 3 Pokemon games, but the thing is, you weren't just limited to the spot you were in. This time, you could actually go back to the old stopping grounds and find that things have definitely changed since the last time you were there, which makes sense because it turns out that in the time period between Red, Blue, and Yellow and Gold and Silver is that 3 years have gone by. So obviously a lot of changes have occurred. But even through that, you still run into a few familiar faces. One in particular, but you won't really know that until you get to the very end. And I mean the very, very, very end, after you've explored everything.
All right. Now, this might be you probably already answered this question, but I'm going to go ahead and answer it anyways. This is a 2-part question, okay?
Yeah.
What do you most hardcore Pokemon fans have what they call a home region. What would you consider your home region to be?
So that's kind of a tough one. Although No, straight up. Not so tough. Since I've only ever really had a chance to travel through 2 specific regions, I will say that it's Johto. Because Johto used to just expand the world of Pokemon in a way that we didn't really see in Kanto, because there was just so much more to explore and so much more to do, and so many places you could sneak into and all kinds of things that I would say that Johto is the best one, only because for me personally, I've only ever played Yellow and Silver. And of course now I'm currently playing Pokemon Y, but yeah, basically I would just narrow it down to Johto. That one specifically because it's a much bigger world. There's a lot more to do, and you just kind of find yourself just wanting to just walk around and just check other things out, and not be so fixated on catching so many Pokemon and just going up against the gym leaders and that's it. You feel more inclined to explore, which again is part and parcel of Nintendo's own self-published games, to where you the player has to explore because there's so many things to check out, and it doesn't feel artificial.
All right. So the second part of that question is, all right, you would live in Johto. Your hometown would be Johto. Where would you live in Johto?
Well, yeah, you got me there. I would have to say just, I would go ahead and say New Bar. I'll be Captain Obvious and just go with New Bartown.
Okay.
Yeah, mainly because granted, as the show and of course the little title thing, the sign over there when you first start out. I mean, it's pretty much alluded to the town where winds of new beginnings blow, and I mean just both in the show and especially in the game, especially for those of us who had played the originals, now getting a chance to play this new one, it felt like it felt like a good mixture of like going through old territories, but yet at the same token, you weren't, because you were obviously in a whole new world, and it just felt like it just felt bigger, yet the same, and yet at the same token distinct, like a good mishmash of all 3 things. And that's not the easiest thing to do, especially when it comes to game design, to be able to like use a mixture of classic things along with adding in new things, and yet making it bigger, but yet not feeling as though it's contrived or like it's out of place. And with New Barktown, you really felt like okay, here I am, and I'm ready to start anew, but it's in a whole new way that you never had, but it's in a way you never had before. I mean, it's like it's just a good mariage of just everything. And New Barktown just seems like the best place to just hang out and live in, because you can basically, it gives you that sense like if you were starting there, and if you weren't in Kanto, it would be in New Barktown. You could get up and kind of just hang out, but no matter where you go, you could always feel like, you know what, I'm going to head back home for a little bit and just chill for a little bit and just get my bearings. Just that kind of vibe and that kind of feel. I mean, granted, there's plenty of other places like the Dragon Roost and whatnot, or even what's the name of that island where the whirlpools are at?
Whirlpool Island.
What was it?
Whirlpool Island.
Whirlpool Island, yeah. Yeah. So but yeah, for me it would be New Barktown. Of course, the close second would pretty much be what's the name of the place where the dragons live? The dragon Pokemon go. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Yeah, but yeah, pretty much. But yeah, that would be my close second. But for me, it would pretty much be New Barktown.
Blackthorn City.
Oh, Blackthorn City, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Blackthorn City. Only because the Dragon-type Pokemon are, hang out around there. But for me, it's New Barktown.
All right, here we go. Next question. What non-gym or Elite Four character do you like in the Pokemon games?
Well, for me, it would pretty much be Bruno. I think I'm saying his name right. Because, I mean, granted, I mean, when you given what we know about the character, I mean, the guy is definitely not a pushover, but he definitely, surprisingly enough, and I think this is because of the show. The character, I mean, he's basically, I mean, he's obviously no old bard when it comes to the Pokemon that he's got. But he is, however, but surprisingly enough, he comes across, and again, because I never had the chance to fight him, but I did basically get a chance to see him in the show, and he comes across as being a very, very wise, very wise person. Somebody who's definitely like he's definitely the kind of guy that you would want to have as sort of like a mentor, or at least study and train under. Maybe not in terms of your fighting Pokemon, but just in terms of just experience that he has. Because he just seems like a very, you know, cool, calm, collected guy, which contrasts greatly with his fighting Pokemon, and you can tell that, yeah, I mean, he's a nice guy, but he's not someone you want to mess with. But that being said, though, he really does come across as being like a tough, but yet at the same token, very smart, very, very wise, and just a guy who really seems to know what he's doing. And on a more funnier note, if you didn't know any better, you would think he was like Brock's older brother or cousin, or even uncle. And I don't know if it's because of the face or because of the hairstyle, but and also the fact that just, I don't know. I mean, just if you didn't know any better, you would think that he was. I mean, of course, granted, he obviously isn't, but I would say Bruno. But I think it's really just because of both the fact that he appears both in Gen 1 and in Gen 2, and also, of course, the show, and the few interactions that he has with both Ash and Brock.
All right, who's your favorite gym leader?
Wow, that is a tough one. That's really, really a tough one. I would have to say probably, man, that one's something that I really had to kind of kick around a little bit, because each of the gym leaders from the two games that I played, they really are distinct, and they're definitely not pushovers. But that's a really, really tough one. Man.
We can come back if you want.
Yeah, you know what? We'll get back to that.
Okay, all right.
Then we'll get back to that, because it's yeah.
All right.
We'll get back to that.
Okay. Who is your favorite evil team, and who is your least favorite evil team?
Well, because I only played the first two games, and sadly I missed out on the other ones. My only real bad guy evil team would pretty much be Team Rocket, hands down. Because, and again, I mean, now with least favorite, well, I guess in a lot of ways you would have to break it down to, like, I guess you could break it down in terms of teams within Team Rocket. Of course, my most favorite team would pretty much be Jesse and James, and my least favorite duo would pretty much be Butch and Cassidy. Now, the reason why I say that is because Jesse and James, who of course only appear in the show and in Pokemon Yellow, but when they appear, whenever they show up, both in Yellow and on the show, they always seem to chew up the scenery. I mean, you kind of get the sense that, yeah, they're going to get stopped, and, you know, and we'll send them blasting off to wherever till next time. But whenever they show up, the reason why Jesse and James, and of course Meowth, are my favorites is because they always seem to chew up the scenery in the best of ways whenever they're around, and they never get too boring. Even though, yeah, a lot of their teams more often than not are pretty much, you know, are pretty much just completely out there, if not ridiculous. But that's why you like them, because I mean, granted, I haven't gone into the episodes into the seasons where all of a sudden you feel like the gloves are off with them, but or at least I haven't gotten to that point yet. But the episodes that I've seen them in, they always chew the scenery, and you know you're going to be in for something entertaining, even if their themes are just downright ridiculous. And another thing, too, and this is something that we kind of find out in a certain movie, or at least in one of them anyway, you get the sense that when push comes to shove, they will basically put aside their differences with our heroes, and they will, they'll work together with them for a much more common goal, especially when there's a much bigger threat looming on the horizon. And my least favorite is, of course, Butch and Cassidy, simply because, and this is another thing, too, and I know we talked about this in a previous episode, whereas Jesse and James, yes, they go out and steal Pokemon from other trainers. But when it comes to their own Pokemon, they at least care about them. You don't. It's not even much question that Jesse and James care for their own Pokemon, not necessarily for other trainers' Pokemon. But at least when it comes to their own, they care very deeply about them. But Butch and Cassidy, they are my least favorite because you clearly get a sense that to them, Pokemon are just tools. Period. Nothing more, nothing less. Granted, they obviously make things entertaining at times when they do appear, but they pretty much are flat out. They are flat out jerks, and they really don't care if they have to sacrifice even their own Pokemon just to accomplish whatever it is they need to accomplish. So in that regard, so basically Butch and Cassidy pretty much are my least favorite, with Jesse and James being my most favorite. Now, because I've only seen the show and I've never really gotten into the other seasons, let alone the later games, aside from Yellow and Silver, I can't really make much of a judgment call on that one. But if we do get a chance to do a Redux version of this little interview, down the road, then I'll get back to you on that one. but yeah, that's my answer for that one.
All right. Now, besides the main series video games that we've already talked about, this is a couple part question. Besides the main games, have you played any of the other the spin-off Pokemon games? And if you have, which one do you like?
Well, I actually have had the chance to play what is my personal favorite, Pokemon Stadium. And this was the Pokemon Stadium that came out for the good old Nintendo 64. And that one, and it's funny because I never owned the game, sadly, but I did get a chance to play it a lot. Back when they used to have, and I know they still have them, but the video game stations of Pokemon Stadium, and I would just play it. And the cool thing about it, what I really liked about it, was that game specifically started getting more close to the show in terms of the action. Because when you basically watch the show and then you compare it end to end with the Gen 1 and Gen 2 games, you know that there's action going on, but you don't really see too much of it. Which again makes sense because of the limitations of the hardware. But with Pokemon Stadium, you actually started to see the Pokemon actually move more when you actually have them, when you execute commands, and you tell them to do certain moves. You actually see them. You actually see what happens when they do those moves, and it just felt more in depth. And plus the fact that it had that, because it's called Pokemon Stadium, you get more of a sense of like a 1-versus-1 type fighting vibe. Not too much, obviously, because after all, we don't want to turn it into a quasi version of Street Fighter. But still, it just felt like it felt as though you were able to see the action a lot more. And I know that there were certain versions of it, and I don't know if it was I'm not sure if it was the same type of game or if they put out another one. But there was one version where you could actually link up your own cartridge, not just link up your own cartridge with the controller, but you could actually play the actual game on via your N64 if you had the right connections available.
Yeah, that's on all of them.
Oh, okay, good. All right, yeah, okay. So, but yeah, again, so I mean, I was because for me, I was so focused on playing, just getting a chance to see your Pokemon actually be more action, or actually see them, be more action oriented than what you had seen in the games up to that point. That was really the hook. And I wish I had gotten one of those games, but you know, they love it. But still, that one was definitely my personal favorite. There was also another game that I had played, and I can't remember which one. It didn't come out for. It wasn't a game that I played on the Game Boy or anything like that, but it was a game that I had played as a demo on the Wii, the original Wii when it came out. This was like, I think it was like a year or so after the Wii came out, and that's what. Oh, WiiWare, that's right. Yeah, and yes, Homestar, you can go ahead and say WiiWare the way you want to, if you're out there somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, basically it was a WiiWare title, and it was Pokemon, but it was like Pokemon as like origami or like paper figurines, and it had a sense of exploration about it. I can't remember what the name of it was. I know it's so. I think the name of it is somewhere here in my Nintendo Power collection.
It could be either Pokemon Ranch or Pokemon Rumble.
I think it might have been Pokemon Rumble.
Okay.
But basically, it was like a mixture of like it was like you got a chance to play as a Pokemon, and you get to explore certain locations, and as you go along, you get to run into different Pokemon, and you can, I guess, befriend them or something like that. Sadly, I only got a chance to play it one time, so I didn't really get a chance to really go in depth into it. But then again, I was a lot more conscious of the memory that I had available. So, and I didn't have an SD card with me at the time, so I really had to kind of pick and choose what games I wanted to have on my Wii menu, because you only had like, you know, a certain amount of megabytes. So yeah, there was that. But it was fun. It was fun from what I remember. So yeah, it was basically that one, Pokemon Rumble and Pokemon Stadium.
Okay.
Those two really stood out to me. Granted, I did hear about other ones like what's it called, Pokemon Ranger or Pokemon Mystery Dungeon or something like that.
Pokemon Ranger, Pokemon Mystery Dungeons are other ones, yes.
Yeah. Of course, I didn't get a chance to play them, but I did see commercials for them, and they look pretty interesting. And I like that it actually allows you to actually play as the Pokemon and not necessarily as a trainer. So I like that. I like those folks. Sadly, I never got a chance to play them, but I do like the fact that they were actually, you know, trying different things and basically, you know, they were fun. They really were fun, from what I saw and heard.
Okay, this is going to be a quick one. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Is there anything else Pokemon related that you played that's not video game related?
Nothing off the top of my head. No.
Okay. All right.
No, just those two. Just those games I mentioned.
All right. Now, the next questions that I would be asking the other interviewees, you've already answered in our other previous episodes, so I'm just going to skip them for now. But I'm going to give you some special ones because you're going to be starting off this podcast. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So here we go.
All right.
First, when was the first time you ever watched Pokémon the First Movie?
The first time I saw it was in theaters. It was not on opening night, unfortunately, but I did get a chance to watch it in theaters. And it was, in fact, right around 1999. I can't remember if it was during the summer but it was somewhere during that year. And it was amazing. It was amazing, and it was like, wow, you know, getting a chance to see Pokemon on the big screen. But hey, you know, when you have a successful video game, you know, franchise, or a successful video game that was now becoming a franchise, merchandising, selling like hotcakes and whatnot, it was only natural that a big budget motion picture, or at least as big as you can get, was going to hit theaters. And I have to say, for its first outing, Pokemon the First Movie really got me. It really showed that these characters can get the big screen treatment and actually give it that feel. And plus the soundtrack, which I have, is just amazing.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up with two more questions. So the next question is, how has Pokemon influenced your life in the last 20 years?
Wow. Well, I guess in a lot of ways it's influenced my life in the last 20 years in that it actually really got me into playing handheld gaming again. and I mean really get into handheld gaming, because up until that point, I never had a Game Boy. I had the Sega Game Gear. So, and I was one of those poor, unfortunate souls, to quote an Ursula phrase. I was one of those poor, unfortunate souls who bought into that marketing at the time. Between Sega and Nintendo, that the Game Gear, you can play, it's got a color screen, you can do all this, whereas the Game Boy you can't. I was one of those guys who got suckered into that, marketing campaign. But the thing is, I mean, I did have a few Game Gear games, but the thing is, other than that, there really wasn't much else. And it turns out there really weren't that many Game Gear games out there for me to play, and the ones that were, very few of them were fun to play. Very few of them actually caught my attention, aside from the Sonic game. But it wasn't until Pokemon came along that it really, really got me back into the Nintendo thing. I mean, granted, I've had nothing but Nintendo consoles, but in terms of handheld, Sega Game Gear was the one that kind of broke me away from that in that sense. And Pokemon really brought me back, not just into Nintendo in general, because again, I always been a Nintendo fan, but Pokemon made me get a Game Boy. It made me get a Nintendo Game Boy, and it really brought me back into it really reinvigorated my my Nintendo fanboyness, and it really allowed me to get back. It really made me a Game Boy fan once and for all. And had it not been for Pokemon, I don't think I would have the Game Boy library that I have now, or the Game Boy Advance library that I ended up getting, or even my DS and 3DS library that I have now. So, I mean, I really got to credit Pokemon for doing that. And even though, granted, I kind of went away from it shortly after I got Silver, but only because at the time I was graduating high school, and other things came up, and so I couldn't really devote as much time to it as I wanted to. But still, Pokemon really did a lot for me in getting me and making me, get a Nintendo Game Boy, and then of course the GBA, and then of course now a 3DS, and of course now I'm back playing my my new Pokemon game, of course, Pokemon Y, and then that was a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun, and it really kind of just it really, the cool thing about that game is that it really brought me back into Pokemon again, and I'm just really looking forward to, looking forward to playing as many of these games as possible, and just enjoying it.
All right, last question. Uh-huh. What do you want to see Pokemon do in the next 20 years? What do you want to see Pokemon do in the next 20 years? Well, what I would like to see them do is just to do actually a mixture of two things. One, really branch out into new directions in terms of gameplay, and coming up with new ways for the player to interact with their Pokemon, both in battles and whatnot. Or in other words, just see where else they can go with this franchise, but also at the same token still staying true to the essence of what made the original two Pokemon games epic and what made them great. So I guess it's a mixture of both of those things, like reaching out for new horizons and trying new things, while at the same token still staying true to the fundamental aspects of what made Pokemon successful in the first place. And Nintendo has always been very good with that, and based on what I've seen, I say we're going to be on the verge of doing that pretty soon. And the fact that it's now the 20th anniversary, and the fact that we're getting Red, Blue, and Yellow coming soon to the Virtual Console, believe me, it's going to be great, because not only is it going to bring back us old fans back into those games, but it's going to entice new audiences who have never played any of those back into them as well. All right. So, I mean, for me, for the next 20 years, I just want to see them, just branch out and just to new horizons and see where they can go, while at the same token staying true to the original material. And again, Nintendo has always been good with that. So whatever they do in the next 20 years, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be just amazing. All right. Well, thank you very much, Danny the Ultrasonic Player. And let's continue on with part 2 of our special 2-part 20th anniversary special. Thank you again, Danny, for joining us.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right, Arcaders. Ubernerd527 here once again. Thank you again so much for joining us for our 20th anniversary special podcast. Now, before we get back into Pokémon the First Movie, I wanted to get you caught up in case you missed part 1 or in case you kind of forgot where we were when we stopped. So, here goes. So, Mewtwo was created by genetically from a fossil that was Mew's hair and was created to be the ultimate Pokemon. Now, when he first woke up, he met the scientists, and the scientists didn't care about him. They just cared about making him the genetic experiment that he was. So he decided to destroy everything, and then he met Giovanni. Giovanni tells him that he can teach him how to use his powers, and he got cool robotic armor. Now, the cool robotic armor, however, did inhibit his powers, but also was able to learn how to focus those powers. So now Mewtwo and Giovanni fought all kinds of different battles, and Mewtwo did everything for Giovanni. But then Giovanni tells Mewtwo that he is a tool for battle and that that was his only purpose in life. Mewtwo doesn't believe that, so he destroys the Team Rocket base and flies off and decides to do his own master plan of killing everyone in the world, only having clones, master clones on the Earth. So Ash Ketchum, we meet him, Brock, and Misty, and they're having a picnic when they're challenged by a trainer who Ash very easily defeats and catches the eye of Mewtwo, who is now getting out invitations to all kinds of strong trainers. After going to a seaport, they find a harbor master and an officer, Jenny, who is kind to tell everyone not to go out there on the ocean, but some of the Pokemon trainers decide to go anyways. And then, of course, Team Rocket shows up disguised as Vikings, and that's where we left off. All right, so we're going to go right back with Diana-saur and Josh T-Rex and myself talking about the rest of the movie and then what we felt about it. And then afterwards, get ready because we're going to be announcing something very, very important about this podcast. All right, so anyways... They get on the... another one that I loved is...
That was so great.
is Jessie saying stroke over and over again. Stroke, stroke, stroke. And then finally she says, I think I'm going to have one. I thought that was pretty funny.
That whole scene's gold.
So anyways...
Probably the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
So they're still... They're going on the water, and then all of a sudden a big wave comes and knocks the boat and knocks Team Rocket out and somehow undresses them completely. And,
they had their Team Rocket.
Not completely, but
whoa,
undresses their costumes off of them.
Well,
somehow.
I mean, they always wear the Team Rocket stuff under their costume every single time.
What? They're not Vikings? And then Brock's like, I should have known. You're not. There's not Vikings here.
Here's my thing. Here's my thing about Team Rocket. Ash and Company knows that they're followed by Team Rocket. They should actually be a little paranoid because Team Rocket could pop out wherever. You know, Ash could be
Minnesotan Vikings.
And all of a sudden they just pop out of nowhere. You know, they should almost be paranoid.
Friendly Vikings here.
Right. They're the best characters
in the
series. I love Team Rocket. They're the comic relief villains. Man. Like in Les Mis, you got the two thief people. That's Team Rocket. It's great.
That's a good point.
Make you laugh.
All right. So, anyways. Moving on from the Vikings.
No, that was it. That was the movie right there.
So we got the second wave that knocks them all off of the boat, and we have a really cool shot. When we watched it again today. I really think that scene was very well animated. It shows Misty underwater and she throws out her Pokeball and Staryu comes out. It looks really. It's animated very well. It looks really kind of cool.
And you said this all was hand drawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting to me. Like how some of the battles were real fluid, and you mentioned like look at all these different camera angles as they're fighting. That gives me a little more respect for them.
So she uses Staryu as kind of like a flotation device, and then finds Brock, who's almost drowning.
Decorative jewelry.
Right, and of course, then she's like, "Have you seen Ash?" And Brock's like, "No."
I think it's funny when they ask Brock if he's seen anyone.
Oh, Josh!
Hi-oh!
Wow. I don't know if that was a burn or like the funniest thing ever.
So anyway, moving on from that. So they all get underwater, and then we see Ash who's grabbed on Squirtle, and Ash grabs Misty's hand, and they all kind of go back up to the surface, and then they're using Squirtle and Staryu as flotation devices, basically, like life preservers.
Just love that noise.
Oh, yeah!
Wow, you did it. You should be a voice actor for Pokemon.
Thanks.
There you go.
Anyone out there, I'm available. I work for free even.
I will pay you.
I will pay you to pay me. I will work for food too. I will work for food. Anyways, so they get through the storm and then they get finally to the island and to the kind of the eye of the storm, and then we see Mew who's kind of flying around doing his Mew thing, and then they finally get to the island, and then of course. Mewtwo's servant is standing there with her light lamp kind of held in the air.
She looks familiar.
It was kind of creepy. And you know,
Wow.
you know,
Children, welcome. Just kidding, she's nicer than that.
So, you know, she welcomes them and has Ash pull out the invitation, which I always thought would be funny if Ash pulled out the invitation, like water came out of his pocket.
Or like the paper one.
Right. Oh crap, sorry. We did say yes, I promise. You could barely see the check.
That's pretty funny.
So anyways, so Brock kind of recognizes her as Nurse Joy, because of course Brock has an infatuation with both Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny. Of course, he would probably be the one who, you know, identifies Nurse Joy.
He just has an infatuation with anything with ovaries. It's just like, oh, it's a female! Oh, I love it!
Well, not necessarily, because he's never really
liked Misty.
done anything for Misty or Jessie. And Jessie's just a little bit older.
Well, Jessie is obviously spoken for, I would say. And I don't know. He probably senses that. I think Misty's punched him enough times that he's just
pulled his ear anytime he flirts with a girl. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like he has enough bumps on the back of his head. It's just...
So, anyways, she says that I'm not Nurse Joy. I've been on this island forever since my master.
I'm not the Joy you're looking for. It's another Star Wars.
And then they kind of walk off, and then we finally figure out how Team Rocket survived the storm, and it was through their James's wheezing.
He's like, oh, why'd you make me do that?
I would love to have seen a scene where how this actually works.
Well, I believe it's also canon that Team Rocket is indestructible. Think about how many times they've blasted
off again.
Right.
Well, way off into the distance.
Literally.
If they could survive being tossed into space and then re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, a little water isn't really going to do anything for them.
That's true. Alright, so then we get a quick scene of Mew coming to the island and then being Mew, because Mew is just a cutie little cat thing. Mew. He starts playing with the fans and kind of jumps on them and it's like, Mew! You know?
Whoa. Something like that.
So I guess
like
everyone evolved from cats.
Apparently, everyone evolved from cats. If the internet has taught us anything.
So my children, like, or I guess like every kid who's like, I have ADHD, it's like, no, it's just cat syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just cat syndrome.
Yeah.
That's what Mew is. Mew has ADHD like crazy. All right, so anyways,
the father of all.
we get to the servant is showing Ash and them where the main hall is. The doors open up. She says, all right, let out all your Pokemon, even though Ash doesn't let out all his Pokemon. Brock doesn't let out his Pokemon. He only lets out Vulpix. Ash doesn't even let Charizard come out.
Well, for good reason.
For good reason.
Yeah.
Misty only has Togepi. And
Starmie is tired.
Starmie, Staryu, and Goldeen.
Oh, okay, I forgot.
Goldeen, Horsey.
Whatever.
Those are all staying in their Pokeballs.
Those are just like, extras.
Yeah, we don't care. So, she says that the master will be with you shortly. Just wait right here. Pull out your Pokemon.
His intentions will be made clear shortly. Doors slam them.
Not that deep, but okay.
Or maybe, you never know.
So then, of course, we get Team Rocket, and they're like, hey, this is a party. We should be joining this. And so they decide to sneak in, and we get a shot of Mew kind of trolling them. We get a shot of Mew trolling before trolling was a thing. Jessie, and then they kind of go in through the sewers. And then we, of course, get to meet the other trainers.
No more coins.
One trainer has a Pidgeot but for some reason calls it a Pidgeotto. Scyther, Hitmonlee, Venusaur, Sandslash, and Rhyhorn. The next trainer has Gyarados, Vaporeon, Tentacruel, Golduck, Nidoqueen, or Nidoqueen, however you want to say it, and Seadra. And the last one has Wigglytuff, Rapidash, Dewgong, Ninetales, Vileplume, and Blastoise. Yes, I had to freeze frame all of that to make sure I saw all of them. So yes, those are the three teams besides Ash and Misty's Ash, Misty, and Brock's Pokemon. So of course, then we get Mewtwo's dramatic entrance, and as Mewtwo is kind of introducing himself to everyone else, Team Rocket is kind of running through the sewers, and that's of course Mew starts trolling with Meowth and starts like playing with his mind and making.
I got your nose. Just kidding.
Yeah, and then use Teleport, which is hilarious because Mew can learn every single TM there is, and originally Mew learns Teleport, Pound, and I believe Transform. If I believe those three moves.
Because like Ditto, right?
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty cool look, we use Teleport. So then Mewtwo kind of shows off his powers to one of the loudmouth trainers. He force chokes him and then force pushes him into the pool.
Sounds very deadly.
Yeah.
And that trainer pretty much sits in the pool until the Shadow Ball scene.
Right.
He's still there.
For that whole 20 to 30 minutes, he's in that
Well,
pool.
I mean, they have a whole battle in the stadium. He's just like, I can see here. I peed a little.
3 times. 3 times is good.
So anyways, before, he doesn't even get out of the pool, but he tells his Gyarados to attack. He uses Hyper Beam, and Mewtwo basically grabs the Hyper Beam, shoots it right back, which I think is Mirror Coat. Is an early sign of Mirror Coat. So, who knows, maybe. And then after the
he just ate it and burped it back. I don't know.
Yeah, just easily beating Gyarados and showing off his power again. Then, for some reason, which I thought was kind of random, it made sense, but also was very random at the same time. He kind of released Nurse Joy. We get the reveal that she's Nurse Joy.
That's a good
servant
point.
was Nurse Joy.
Well,
I was actually
it's like,
wondering.
I have no further use for you in deceiving these stupid humans.
Yeah, and
Okay, that makes sense.
then Mewtwo kind of says, well, I wiped your memory. You had great knowledge of Pokemon physiology, which was good for my plan.
I made you make that dress.
I made you make that dress. We talked about the dress. We don't know who made the dress. But isn't it sad that if Mewtwo was, psychically making her make her own dress?
I mean, I just imagine, psychic needles just, knitting something by themselves while he's cloning the Pokemon.
Mewtwo, knitting psychically?
Well, maybe just stole it from the store.
I mean, he was bored, I
probably
guess.
He made that guy from Team Aqua do it.
Right.
Hey, you son, I saw you lose really bad, so you get to go pick out the dress. Purple.
There's probably a deleted scene somewhere. Mewtwo in his search for what his life really is, he's a dressmaker for a little while.
Josh, please put that in your comic. Make that part of your comic somehow. What really happened if there's no deleted scene?
It's like Thanos in Marvel. He's a farmer for a little while just because he doesn't know what to do with his life.
That's true. Alright, so Team Rocket is still exploring the mansion, and then they find the cloning lab. And in the cloning lab, we see the clone Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur. And they're kind of like, oh, we thought this was a party. What's going on? Jessie kind of sits on a big red button.
The exposition computer.
Exposition! So then she turns on the cloning machine, which grabs Meowth.
I thought it was weird that the cloning machine announces what it is. Hello, I'm a cloning machine. Booting up cloning process. Grabbing cloning subject.
Right, and so Meowth gets captured by the cloning machine, and Team Rocket tries to save Meowth, and the machine just takes hairs from the end of Meowth's tail, and then we see kind of a computer animated of the hairs turning into a helix, a double helix.
That was cool.
And then,
You could tell when they're using CGI versus
right.
hand-drawn. There's just a different characteristic to it.
But
right.
as a kid, you're like, holy cow.
And then the one scene that made you laugh the most, which was the, who's that Pokemon?
Yes!
Down!
That was an excellent fourth wall joke that I laughed very hard at.
That was really funny.
So then the Meowth clone comes out, and Meowth is like, oh my gosh, It's a clone of me. So we go back to Mewtwo, who tells everyone his plans, that he's going to kill all humans. Apparently, he's like Bender. And then he's also going to kill Pokemon as well, because Pokemon have tarnished their good name because they're slaves to humans. And Pikachu's like, Pika, Pika, Pika! And Mewtwo's like, oh, really?
Really? You're friends? No, you're not.
And then kind of throws Mewtwo, and Ash grabs him and saves his life.
But I like about this that Mewtwo says, oh, I'm going to kill all humans and Pokemon, but I'm not going to do it yet.
Not yet.
Because I'm sparing you guys' lives for now. I'll kill you later. Must reveal evil plan and look impressive.
And so this other trainer decides that, oh, if you're a Pokemon, I'm going to capture you. So he sends his Rhyhorn after Mewtwo, which is the video game nerd in me goes, why would you send your Rhyhorn after Mewtwo? And then the anime nerd is, oh, that Rhyhorn's going to get it.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
you might as well have sent Psyduck, buddy.
It might have actually done. It might have been a super effective.
Who knows?
Psychic battle.
So he's Rhyhorn, it doesn't work.
I love Psyduck.
And then Ash kind of challenges Mewtwo, and Mewtwo's like, oh, okay, awesome. I planned for this. And then all of a sudden we get a CG shot of, like, this arena that he made.
Well, I mean, it almost makes sense. Most times when evil villains reveal their evil plans, it doesn't make sense. And when you have a battle, it doesn't make sense. But Mewtwo's actually trying to prove himself here. He's trying to prove that he's a clone. He validates his worth. He validates that he's better than everyone else.
I think what he's trying to do is twofold. First, he's trying to start his master clone race.
Mm-hmm.
And then also at the same time, he's trying to show these humans what he can do, and then send them back, and then they'll go tell everyone else, oh crap, this Pokemon's about to kill us all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then, you know, put the fear into everyone. That's why I think his whole master plan is. So anyways, he decides to fight the trainers. Ash, then we of course get each trainer with their starter Pokemon. So we get Brute Root, which was kind of a weird.
Yeah, I was like,
Wait, was it Groot?
Brute.
Okay.
I am Groot.
I am Groot.
Groot. And then of course we get Shell Shocker, which is the girl's Blastoise.
Brute. Sorry, I just got that.
And then of course Ash is like, well, he doesn't have a fancy nickname, but I've got this Charizard.
Yeah, that was so funny to me because I didn't understand that as a kid.
Right.
They're like they have all these nicknames, and then he says that, but in the game you actually nickname your Pokemon, and I'm like, OMG, this is hilarious.
Well,
now.
Pokemon, I don't.
I did in the first game.
I don't actually nickname him in the game. If I nickname him, it's outside the game, so I just kind of call him something myself.
No, if I'm not trading in the version I'm playing, I always give them funny names. Like Lickitung was Frenchie. Frenchie. But
didn't you have a Hitler one?
But Hitler used hail.
And Autobots used rollout.
Autobots use rollout.
You know what? The only one I've ever thought of is getting a Deerling and calling it and training it to be a Sawsbuck, and then naming it Bambi's mom. So Bambi's mom is paralyzed. Bambi's mom is Bambi's mom fainted.
Oh.
Bambi's mom is poisoned.
You know what? I've never seen it, so I feel like I don't need to see the movie now that I've heard this description of Bambi. Wow, maybe I should watch it.
It's just Bambi's mom.
Bambi's mom.
Bambi is essentially a environmentalist movie about why you shouldn't hunt and eat meat.
There you go.
So you don't like this movie?
So anyways, back to Pokemon.
I don't know, this is great.
So Charizard shoots off a flamethrower, which doesn't affect Mewtwo in the slightest, and then Mewtwo kind of just effortlessly just blocks the flamethrower and just you poorly trained your Charizard there.
Which is ironic because he's like, oh, well, Pokemon shouldn't be slaves. They should think their own thing. So I was like, oh, he's going to prove the Charizard, just not doing what Ash says.
Right. Well, I mean, he did say he did train Pokemon, so he kind of got in the mindset of how a trainer feels. I don't know. Anyways, but let's move on. So then we get the fight. So Venusaur versus Clone Venusaur. Venusaur is very easily beaten by Clone Venusaur's Vine Whip, which picks the giant Venusaur up in the air and throws him like a claw machine. Then we got Blastoise versus Clone Blastoise, which Clone Blastoise was able to use Rapid Spin before Rapid Spin was actually a thing. And then, of course, Charizard, Ash's Charizard versus Clone Charizard, which Ash's Charizard actually fared better than the Clone Charizard. So...
I'm sorry, this is distracting.
That's right. Then we, of course, got... Then, of course, after Mewtwo beats everyone, he's like, all right, so just like with drag racing, I get to take all your Pokemon away from you because I won.
Just like drag racing.
Like a pink slip, yeah.
Yeah.
I get your pink slips. I mean Pokemon. So he pulls out these shadow Poké-balls and starts capturing all the Pokemon. And then it's like, now I'm going to capture the rest of your Pokemon. Here I go. And so he pulls out all these shadow balls, and then of course the group runs away from the Pokeballs. Most of the Pokemon are captured. Ash then gets the bright idea to put his Squirtle and Bulbasaur in the Pokeballs because he's like, oh, he can't capture Pokemon once they're already in the Pokeballs. And of course he can because he's Mewtwo.
Pokeception. Just captures the Pokeball inside the Pokeball.
Now think about if the Pokemon ate a Pokeball before then that would be.
It would go in the Pokeball. The Pokemon would go in the Pokemon's stomach, and then stay in the Pokeball, and then slowly digest it. We're not going to play that.
Dark places.
So anyways, then Pikachu is running away from this thing and going up the stairs, and Ash tries to follow Pikachu, and Pikachu has a hard time getting away from these Pokeballs, and then gets the bright idea of using electricity to disable the balls, and then he tries to dodge it, and then falls off the ledge, and then we think Pikachu is falling to his doom, and then Ash jumps after him. Ash is one of those kids who will jump off a ledge and then try to figure out how to survive on the way down.
Or maybe not.
Because that's what happens.
It's like Team Rocket, just invincible.
Right.
Pikachu!
And then Pikachu gets caught by the Shadow Ball, and Ash grabs the ball and then lands in the pool, and the ball goes away from him, and he jumps out of the pool and then slides down the slide that the Shadow Ball goes towards. And then, of course, we go back to the cloning. We go back to the cloning machine, and Ash is running after the Pokeball, and then sees Team Rocket and says, "I have no time for your dumb model today."
Like, yes, thank you. We know what you say every time.
Every time they try to do the motto in the movies, they get cut off.
Ah.
I have noticed that every time they try to do the motto in the movies, they get cut off. I don't think there's a movie yet that they've finished the complete motto.
Okay.
Yet. So, anyways. So Ash runs to try to save Pikachu. He gets pulled into the cloning machine and tries to pull the ball away from the cloning machine. At one point, actually bites one of the arms because that's a thing.
It worked. Hey,
it worked.
We got him out.
He broke the cloning machine. Just was like, oh, my arms are destroyed. Self-destruct.
So he self-destructed. Well, also the fact that he cloned all these Pokemon all at the same time. I think that was another thing that happened. So then, of course, all the Pokemon come out, and we get the, again, who's that Pokemon joke. Of course, Scyther pops up, they say Alakazam. Which is
that again was pretty funny.
No, you're wrong.
Are they making fun of us?
They're making fun of us.
How did they know I didn't know?
It's Pikachu. Gosh darn it.
What is this? What is this? It's a Voltorb. No, it's a Jigglypuff seen from above. You know?
That's funny. I've not heard that.
That was a joke from the actual anime. Anyways,
I need to see that.
So anyways, then after all this cloning, after all the clones come out, and Mewtwo's like, "All right, you've served my purpose. Now go, but cling to your lives for very short because I'm going to kill everybody." And the clones come out.
Maybe not.
The clones come out, and they're like, "My clones are superior," blah blah blah. And then out of the smoke, we get Ash's hero moment.
And if I may say, I don't know if you want my opinion on this movie now or later, but this is where the movie starts to fall apart.
All right. all right. So then, of course, Ash is like,
"You won't do this. I won't let you slow walk through the smoke."
Right. You won't do this. I won't let you. And then he has the parade of all the originals, and then
You guys are bootleg.
Right, you guys are bootleg. We're the originals.
You're from eBay. Go back to your mama.
And so the best thing I think about this is like Ash is like, all right, you're mine, and he starts running after Mewtwo, and I think this is the first time that we see Ash kind of being very violent and actually tries to punch Mewtwo.
He's always very spunky and defensive of his people,
right?
Or his Pokemon.
Of his people, yeah, Pikachu.
But without thinking, I thought it was very much in character for him.
Right, and so Mewtwo like shoots him off, like into the air
to the top of the building. Right,
to the top of the building where you think Ash is going to die. Then all of a sudden, this pink bubble just stops him. And he kind of like floats on the pink bubble, and then of course Mew comes out and is like kind of laughing at Ash, and then like pops the bubble, and Ash kind of falls down on his butt, and then Mew's like, "Oh, that looks like fun! I'm gonna do it." So he makes a bubble himself, and then starts playing on the bubble, and then the bubble pops, and he just starts laughing, and Mewtwo's like, come fight me! I'm stronger!
You think you're superior?
And Mew just comes down. And the whole time I love it because Mew is the consummate cat. Because he doesn't ever look at Mewtwo directly in the face. He always is looking around at something. And, everything's distracting to him.
Look
Look at cloud. That looks like something. Oh, look there. That was shiny. Oh, look at that. I think I just saw a Murkrow. But they don't exist yet. So... and then at first Mewtwo kind of like fights Mew, and Mew's like, I'm not fighting you. I'm just having fun. And then we get this whole like, I won't fight back, and then Mewtwo fires a Shadow Ball, which we know was a Shadow Ball, at Mew, and we thought, oh, Mew's dead or something. And then Mew kind of fires a shot back. And it's like,
or deflects it.
Right, he deflects it.
Ball of yarn, hit back.
Then,
that's what I thought.
And then Mewtwo is like, my clones are superior to your things. And then Mew's like, no.
It's on the strength of the heart, Mewtwo.
Yeah, it's in the strength of the heart. And he's like,
not about special abilities. And Mewtwo's like, oh, they need no special abilities. I will take away that Generation 3 power right now. And then the guys just fight each other as equals.
That's what I was like wondering if he was referencing. I was like,
no,
I think he was referencing the fact that they could shoot lightning and water and fire and...
I think just some of the overpoweredness. He was like, okay, fine, they'll just do it by the strength of their guts, like in Rocky movies.
Okay, well, now that that's cleared up, now it explains the next part for me. I was like, why aren't they using electricity?
Right, so they fight and all the animals, and then of course we get the really cheesy...
You're my brother!
We're brothers till the end of time.
And you get this whole thing of Ash kind of looking at everyone fighting. He's like, oh crap, what's going on here? And, to me it looks like these are like real animals fighting instead of,
ones with magic powers.
Right, with magic powers. They're really biting each other, they're really clawing each other, they're really, going at it. And the only Pokemon who won't fight is Pikachu. He's like, I ain't gonna fight you. I don't want to fight.
He just gets slapped.
And he gets slapped back and forth by the clone.
And you notice the clone one starts slapping less and less every time. He's crying.
And so everyone's just kind of fighting each other, and Ash is trying to... He takes like 10 minutes to get down from the top of the tower where he's at while all this is going on.
Faster than me.
Meowth actually doesn't fight either.
So Meowth is the only one that's not fighting. And so he kind of talks to the clone, and then we get metaphysical Meowth. Who talks about we should
look at what's the same instead of what's different, guys, and then we would all just get along.
And then we all just get along.
We wouldn't need to have Pokemon battles.
Look at you, we just all get along. It'll be so wonderful. Wonderful. This is how Meowth starts out.
This is from Jersey. From Jersey.
Yeah, That's not how New Jersey sounds.
I want to buy some chocolate. Sorry, go ahead.
I represent the proud state of Jersey.
So anyways, Pikachu refuses to fight his clone. He gets smashed. He gets slapped around a bit with his clone.
Or smashed. That's where they
smashed.
Smash
because
Brothers.
he's Pokemon's. He's Smash Brothers. He's Smash Brothers.
Well, I like how the second Pikachu gets weaker and weaker with every slap, and how he's like crying,
and then like Pikachu's like, it'll be okay.
He slowly wears down the hard heart of his rival.
It's like they're in their therapy session. It's like, it'll be okay.
I attribute it more to like Pikachu Gandhi through his non-violence.
Pika Gandhi.
Turning the heart of his oppressor.
Now, if the movie moved towards that way, I wonder how different that would be.
Oh gosh. All right, so then of course Mew and Mewtwo come down. They charge up a big blast and they shoot it off. And right before they hit each other, of course, Ash does his usual thing of jumping right in front of the beams.
He gets Mr. Tumnus.
Yeah. And then turns into stone. So then we get the, of course, very sad, but very, very well animated version of Pikachu trying to revive Ash. Yeah. And it's a really sad moment. There's no music. It's just Pikachu, and you can see him just kind of strain to pull out every bit of electricity he has to try to wake Ash up.
And while I don't think the reason set it up well, like I mentioned, it's set up so well that Pikachu bonds with Ash, and they show like Ash trying to save Pikachu and like fighting all those claws and biting them and then running up that staircase. It shows that they have a deep bond for one another. Right. So it gives a lot more meaning to that scene.
Right. And it's probably the one scene that every kid in the audience was like teary-eyed. Like, Pikachu, you love Ash. Everyone would sound like that. You know, everybody sounds like that.
I actually teared up. I don't think as a kid I did, but like watching the emotion that Pikachu had, I was like, oh my gosh, like what if this was like my best friend, like someone that I've known forever, and they just got fossilized? I don't really understand how or why.
Turned fossil. You turned to a fossil. Don't worry, we'll put you to the scientist lab and they'll bring you back.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, I guess it's frozen. So yeah, just seeing Pikachu try with all his heart. It's so sad.
And then of course, Pikachu starts tearing up, and you see tears coming from his eyes. And then of course, all the Pokemon, both clone and originals, are tearing up as well. And all the tears somehow are magnetically drawn to Ash.
Well, the Russian lady said it would happen.
Yeah, so. Because the Russian lady said.
In Soviet Russia, the tears crush you.
Tears cry you.
Oh, yeah.
So all the Pokemon are crying, and all the tears go to Ash, and Ash starts glowing, and then all of a sudden he's good again.
Another day for Ash.
And, everyone's like, oh, yeah, and then Mewtwo has this metaphysical Mewtwo moment where he's just like, well, maybe you're all right. Maybe no one's superior to anyone else.
And then he psychics everyone up, including the flying Pokemon.
Including the flying Pokemon, which was like, they can fly. Why?
He just wants to keep them together like a psychic child.
It's a safety rope. It's a psychic safety rope.
Or what was that, like a child leash? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's right. And, of course, then we get the fact that Mewtwo says, well, we're going to just forget all this, because just like every other Pokemon movie, you forget this all happened. This was not canon. Forget it ever happened.
Jedi mind tricks again.
Well, it's like the witness protection program. Mewtwo is trying to protect himself from trainers who are going to use the Master Ball on him.
Right, of course. So they go back they're back in the port. They almost have the exact same scene that we had before they left. But this time,
does he mind trick everyone else around them, too?
I'm guessing so. I mean, it was a big white light that, engulfed everything. So maybe he engulfed the whole world, and everyone just kind of forgot what they did that day.
Did I leave the oven on?
Why is that what everyone says when they forget something? Did I leave the oven on?
I don't know. Does everyone say that? I just do that a lot.
So, of course, the storm dies down. Everyone thinks it's a miracle. Ash and company run to see the storm kind of dying down, and then Ash sees Mew kind of flying off and its little shininess.
Or something.
And then, of course, he makes the reference to the first episode of the show where he sees Ho-Oh in the sky, and he tells Misty and Brock, and Misty's like, you just saw something, and Brock's like, well, maybe he didn't see it. Who knows?
Did you know?
And then, of course, we can't end a Pokemon movie, without Team Rocket.
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, we have Team Rocket signing off again, and they're kind of stuck on New Island, which is now turned into like a flowery paradise. And then they all make the comment about, having a day at the beach, and then
they're like, why are we here? Who cares? It's great outside. That's literally what happened.
And then, of course, Meowth wants to ride the catamaran.
I enjoy the puns in this movie.
Sometimes they're punny and sometimes they're not.
Just plain bad. Yeah. It's, I think it's okay to have a few bad puns because then it sets you up for a really good one. Like, wow, genius. Since you used that bad one, I feel better about this one.
There you go. All right. I go with that.
That's how it is with me, I think.
So then we go, of course, the credit sequence, which one of my favorite things about any anime movie is the credit sequence at the end, because they always do something to kind of make you want to sit there and watch the credits.
Yeah.
Sit there and kind of enjoy it. And sometimes they even add story elements that kind of give you closure. During that time. I know a lot of Miyazaki films do that. The third Pokemon movie did that.
Spoilers for those of you who haven't
spoilers.
seen it. Since 2002 or whatever.
So, yeah. If you haven't seen it, if you always fast forward through the credits, stop, watch these. They're very, very well animated, very cool looking,
beautiful.
and it's just Ash and company just kind of walking from one place to the other,
I would let it be my screensaver.
Yeah, definitely let it be my screensaver.
Oh no, I still have it on pipes.
And then, of course, before Marvel did it, of course, Pokemon had to do it. We have the secret ending of Mew kind of flying toward the mountain that we saw at the beginning of the movie.
I really like that secret ending thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
Yeah, it'll catch on eventually.
Spoilers again for those of you who haven't seen Avengers.
But I just really love it. All right, so this is the part of the podcast where we talk about pros and cons.
Yeah.
So what we liked about the movie, what we didn't like about the movie. Since you're my guests, I'm going to let you guys go first. So what did you like about the movie?
Well, he's the con guy.
He's the con guy.
Why don't you guys start with the flowers and roses?
Okay, all right.
Okay. I mean, as a kid, I just remember, the amazing emotion of, the free Pokemon card, but then also, the movie, yeah! Might talk about that later.
Forget about the movie, you'll get a card, yeah!
Alright, so that is my pro, is how they market these things, giving you the free Ancient Mew trading card, which I still have in my Pokemon binder.
I gave mine all away.
I never sent it away to get translated, but I still love that thing. Half the reason to go see this, the only reason to see the Yu-Gi-Oh movie was to get the trading card. This one had some decency back.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know, Josh, you had that opposite kind of effect. You're like, I'll let you talk about that in a second. But I loved it. I loved, just this sense of adventure it carried. I loved, how Pikachu just, kept fighting on. And it was just, a continuation of their adventure. And, they meet Mewtwo, and then Ash, saves the day and, once again reunites, Pokemon and humans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's always touching, He's always thinking of Pikachu first and others.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he's impulsive.
I have to say, my favorite character in the movie has to be Mewtwo. I think that Mewtwo is a very well-rounded character in any medium, whether it be the video games, whether it be most mediums. I mean, in the video game, he's one of the only Pokemon you actually learn their history and learn exactly where he came from, and he's the only Pokemon that he kind of has a universal problem. He doesn't know why he's on this earth, what his purpose
everyman,
is.
Yeah,
and I think that's a very universal thing, that even though he's an animal, for all intents and purposes...
He's a real thing. I guess animals are real. Sorry.
But even though for all intents and purposes he's an animal...
Yeah.
He's a clone of the original being.
Right, but he still has kind of something that you can relate to. And I think that also makes Mewtwo a really cool character.
I mean, I would argue that he's more humanoid than animal.
Right.
If you look at and if you look at hear his thoughts, his voice, and everything, there's not really anything separating him from being a human except Barney syndrome, where he's purple and he's got a tail.
Well, he can also levitate things with his mind.
Well,
true.
Yeah, okay. So he's a mix of Barney, Darth Vader, and a human. He force chokes things. He throws things. He has anger tantrums and gets out of tanks.
So you're saying he's Kylo Ren? Hi-oh! Okay, so...
His ears are smaller.
If
you want to say he's more of a well-rounded character than Kylo Ren, I would agree with you. However, the statement you just made were, in any medium, Mewtwo is the most well-rounded character, I would say you need to come to my podcast and watch the movies.
Well, I mean any medium for Pokemon. I didn't
okay,
mean
you said any medium, I'm like,
No, I'm sorry. Let me clarify. I meant any medium for Pokemon.
Okay.
He's
Only
a well-rounded
Pokemon
character.
exists in
For
Josh's
Pokemon.
world.
Yes,
Okay.
only Pokemon exists in my world. So
I'm a Pokemon dinosaur.
I do like Mewtwo. I always loved Mewtwo. I thought him being the final boss was really cool. Catching him was an event.
Yep.
I didn't even know he
Very
existed
epic.
really
You should
until
go
later
to that.
on, which was kind of neat because then your friends are like, "Did you go in that cave? You can go in the cave after you beat the Elite Four, and you can catch this really awesome, super powerful Pokemon." And of course, you use
Was that before the movie came out, I guess?
Yeah, it was before the
Okay,
movie.
okay. That had to be.
So you go in the cave, you catch Mewtwo, and then of course when you play Pokemon Stadium, I use Mewtwo as my comeback kid. So if all my other Pokemon failed, Mewtwo would come out and just decimate everyone.
Fun fact, I was a stupid kid and used a Master Ball and a Pidgeot. So I wound up, after about 80 tries, going through all my Ultra and Great Balls, I threw a Pokeball and caught Mewtwo.
Yeah, my brother did the
Wow.
same thing. He caught
Pokeball.
Mewtwo with a Pokeball. So that was a pretty big thing around our house. So all right,
Aw,
let's.
that's so cute.
All right, so these guys are
Let's
kind of
go to our
eyeing me
cons.
warily.
Your cons. Do it.
Because they're like, they've already heard my opinion of this movie. So,
Okay.
so they're like, oh, I don't want to say pros because he's going to yell at me. Okay. First thing, I saw this movie when I was 11 years old. And I've not seen it since then until today. And the only thing I remembered was, as a kid, I thought the movie... I essentially just remembered the last 20 minutes of this movie. And I thought was garbage, and that I was being patronized. Because it's like, why are the Pokemon fighting each other? That's so terrible. I'm like, that's what you do every Pokemon episode. What are you trying to say? Watching the movie again, I actually liked it better than I thought I would. It had a lot of jokes I thought was funny. The who's that Pokemon joke, the Viking joke, the scene with the elf. I laughed quite a few times, more than I have actually watching the past 3 episodes of Futurama. I don't know. That's not an insult to that show. I'm just saying that I enjoyed myself more than I thought I would. But then when I got to the last 20 minutes of this episode, of this movie, my 11-year-old self was validated. Or I guess I was 7, actually. This came out in 98. Because I still feel like the ending of this movie is a bit of a mess. The biggest thing is we talk about 4 kids, like, censoring things. I don't know if this was censored by 4 kids.
It was.
But, okay. So the music that's behind the big battle and stuff, the brothers to the end of time, kills it. It just ruins the mood. It's trying to make something...
Like an 80s movie instead of a 90s movie.
I don't even know. I think it's an insult to 80s movies.
So what you're trying to say is they're trying to shoehorn a moral into the movie that doesn't belong there.
I feel like that. I feel like not every movie needs a moral. And if you're going to tell a moral, tell it well. And I feel like a TV show where the entire thing is based on things fighting each other, saying that you shouldn't fight each other is a bad moral to try and portray in that particular show and medium. Now, that's not the only thing they're trying to say. They're trying to say that true things come from the heart. We're all the same deep down. We don't need to destroy each other. But it's just told in a way that I feel is convoluted and not really
Like a
effective.
little bit rushed. Like kind of random, like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's also one of my cons too, is the Americanization of this, and I've never watched the original Japanese version of this movie, and any listeners out there that are listening and want to maybe chime in, we'll tell you how to do that at the end of the podcast. But I've never seen the original one. I don't really intend to see the original Japanese version.
I feel like it's worth just
actually speaking.
Just going to YouTube, looking up a comparison video. But
All right.
if they had gotten rid of the music that's behind the big final battle and given it just anything different, you
Right.
could play Rick Astley's "No Strangers to Love." I would like that better.
Well, I think it would have been better if it was an orchestral music as opposed to just some random 90s pop music that they tried to throw in there to try to give it more validation.
Yeah, it's
Pretty funny that way, though. I was like...
And I mean, some of the lines about the Pokemon fighting each other, but were just too cheesy. You could have thrown in some other line than, oh, the Pokemon battling is so sad, to give it the moral message that they wanted.
Right.
I talked earlier.
Pretty amazing.
We talked earlier. Like there's there's a line that you have to cross when you're doing something moral, when you're doing something entertaining.
Right.
There's a difference between educating someone with like Schoolhouse Rock and then
Right.
doing something like Looney Tunes. And I feel like this movie doesn't hit that middle ground or doesn't hit that stride. I don't mind that it's trying to send a moral message. I just don't feel like it's done well. I don't believe it's believable. And I mean, I'm saying believable with a children's movie.
Right.
But
Well,
as a kid, I felt patronized. I felt like you guys are trying to shove something down my throat instead of, something that's cool or believable
Right.
or awesome.
And that was actually a thing back in the 90s, was like they tried so hard to make things educational because there was a whole group of parents who were trying very hard to make like TV shows educational, and you can see the kind of transition in the early 90s.
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Like I my best example that I could give is Tiny Toon Adventures. If you've ever watched Tiny Toon Adventures, they even lampooned it a little bit, where they, these parent groups were like, no, these shows have to all be educational because my kids have to go to college and blah 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 and whatever, and they can't hit people with anvils on the head, and they can't fight strange magical creatures, and all that different things. So I agree with you, actually. I agree. Is this my favorite Pokemon movie? No. Is it one of my favorite? It's probably in my top 5 of all the Pokemon movies that they have. It's probably
Of the
probably
4,
2 or
it's your
3.
top 5. I'm just kidding.
No, there's like 18 now.
Yeah.
So there's like 19 Pokemon movies, and I have most of them.
You know
so
what? It's 20 years later. Yeah.
right. So
Podcast.
I would. My favorite one, just so I'm on the record, is Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, because the subject matter they deal with in that movie is a little. I would hazard to guess even darker than this movie.
And they kill people in the opening.
Right.
Jeez.
There's no proof that Mr. Fuji's dead.
He lives on in Minnesota.
He lives on in our hearts.
Oh. He's actually a Viking from Minnesota.
Hey, he's in Minnesota.
It's fun for what it is.
Right.
I just feel like the shoehorn morals like bring it down rather than uplift it.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about Mewtwo having a voice. It's like this monotone emo thing. Who am I? What do I stand for?
That sounds just like him.
What am I doing? And it's.
I liked his voice. I really did like his voice. I thought his voice was fitting for Mewtwo. But you have to remember, every Pokemon movie that they have, the mythical Pokemon, with the exception of Celebi, Latios, and Latios, they all spoke. They all talk.
I don't know if they need to speak.
And they talk telepathy.
Like they almost make them god-like creatures. Like Entei is essentially Aslan from Chronicles of Narnia.
Right,
like,
right.
I feel like it detracts more from their character and the atmosphere of the movie.
I mean, heck, in there's a movie with Zoroark in it, and they had she has a little Zorua, and the Zorua can somehow talk through telepathy.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
I mean, I guess you can't do this movie unless he talks, because you need to show that. And I mean, the movie starts out really strong. I think it's a compelling opening sequence, but like how Mewtwo suddenly gets changed around at the end,
It was very rough.
It was very quick.
Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, it was very quick.
Did he
Like,
kill the humans and then he just
he just killed he kills his first human, and he's like, actually, I feel bad about this. Let's go away, brother.
Actually,
now I'm
this
gonna
wasn't
learn.
such a good idea.
learn.
We'll push him under the rug. Just push him under the rug.
I mean, it's there's some of it hits the right notes and some of it doesn't. I feel like changing that music, changing some of those lines would have
Well, let's see what happens.
exponentially improved it.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, what do you guys think out there? So, Arcaders, if you're listening right now, what do you guys think? If you want to message us and tell us what you think about the movie, please message us on Instagram, the Arcade Archives Network. You can also go to us on Twitter, at Arcade A Network, or you can message me directly at TailsFT Game Grid. Let us know. What do you think? Or if you're listening to this on our site, thearcadearchives.com, if you look at the top right where the post is, there's a little word bubble. You can comment through there as well. So let us know. And if you comment, I'll definitely bring this up on future episodes of Pokemon Rewind.
That's cool.
So
Can I ask you a question?
Can you, okay. ask me a
So
question.
a couple questions I usually close out our other show on the other podcast.
All right, go ahead.
Is
Shoot.
would you recommend this movie to a friend? Is it a classic?
Okay.
And would you watch it?
Okay. Would I recommend this to a friend? Yes, if the friend likes Pokemon. Or if they don't like Pokemon, just show them the beginning prologue. Do I think this is a classic? Yes, but not necessarily for the story, just because it's the first Pokemon movie. It was the first one on the big screen. It was the first time we ever saw these characters on the big screen.
It was an experience, guinea pig.
So the experience, yes, was classic. The movie itself was all right. Not my favorite movie, but the story was all right, and it was kind of, and sometimes it was thrown together, but I do still enjoy it. And what was the last one?
Would you watch it again?
Would you watch it again?
Would I watch it again? Yes. Because I've watched it several times.
You just bought the Blu-ray.
I just bought the Blu-ray, so yes, I would. Now,
He's gonna watch it again tomorrow.
Would I watch it again, like over and over again? Probably not. I'd probably watch it once and then put it away for a while, and then every once in a while I'll pull it out again. But if I have like
anniversary.
Yeah, for the 40th anniversary. No, but if I have like sometimes Pokemon marathons where I'm sitting, I just need some noise. I'd probably put it on. But yeah, those are good questions.
What do you
Awesome.
think, Diana? Would you say the same thing? Would you recommend it to a friend as a classic, and would you watch again?
I would say pretty much the same thing you said, because I think, I think he summed it up in a really good sense that the experience. I feel like it's hard to share that experience unless you've seen the movie when you were 11. So if you haven't, I'm sorry. Although I did, I mentioned that I cried, but like teared up this time around. I don't know. That might be embarrassing, but. Anyways, I actually related with the emotions of the Pikachu, so I really did catch a lot more this time around. But yeah, I would recommend being on this podcast talking about it if you really liked the movie when you were 11.
So showing it to your kid,
it's nostalgic.
It's something. Yeah, if you show it to your kids, I think that's great. I would totally let my kids grow up watching Pokemon and be like, now kids, don't look at the education in this movie. Look at the entertainment. Take it for the entertainment.
Just for the experience. For the experience.
I would want to share this experience with my kids.
It's the same thing with me. That's why I collect a lot of my DVDs. Is I actually am collecting them so that one day when I have a kid, I can bring these out.
Aww.
Because that was one of the things I enjoyed when I was a kid. Is my dad we had tons of these VHSs that my dad recorded stuff on TV.
Gold.
We would sit down and watch James Bond marathons, and so a lot of times what I like to do is I like to buy a lot of these DVDs because one day I want to show them to my kids and be like, hey, this is what I used to watch when I was a kid. This is DuckTales. This is Darkwing Duck. This is this is Pokemon. Pokemon. And eventually my goal is eventually owning all the seasons of Pokemon, which is going to be a tall order. Especially since it's
tall
going.
in a physical sense and a non-physical sense.
So, now, speaking of your podcast, what I like to do before anytime a guest joins the podcast, I always like to give them time to shamelessly plug anything they would like to shamelessly plug. So, feel free. You have the floor.
All right. So I have started a podcast. We've recorded the first couple episodes. They should be posting shortly. We just wanted to get a couple together before we started putting them out there. But it's called Hey Watch This. It's essentially a book club for movies where the idea is the audience watches a movie and then we talk about the movie with them. You could not watch the movie you wanted to, but I feel like you get a lot more out of a discussion about something if you have your own opinion, your own thoughts. It's all fresh in your mind about it.
Cool. I've learned a lot today. Also.
And my hope is also to start a sister one, Hey Playlist, because I love video games. My friend Phil is a movie buff who loves movies. So essentially he shows me classic movies and he tells them why they're great and I tell him why they're garbage. And I'm showing him movies too. He chose a Kurosawa film and I said, okay, we're going to watch Die Hard now, Phil. This is my definition of a classic.
Cool.
So it's an interesting dynamic. But Hey Playlist is because I love video games, so we're going to play some classic and new classic games and discuss them with one another.
Cool.
Honey, anything you want to plug? Art websites?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the main...
Your Tumblr?
I don't know, I'm so embarrassed about giving that stuff out. Maybe in a future episode I will tell you more about my art and stuff, but I would definitely tell you guys to go play at Disney Quest because hashtag Disney Quest is open.
Hashtag Disney Quest is open.
Yeah.
Still open, still surviving.
Yeah.
Trudging along.
It's still there.
Like
we
a man.
promise.
Like the knight from Monty Python with no arms and no
I can
legs.
still bite you.
It's a flesh wound.
Just a flesh wound, we can keep it going.
Wow.
I've had worse. No, you haven't.
Based on these reactions, you should go to Disney Quest.
All right, so time for my shameless plugs. Here we go. So we are part of thearcadearchives.com, and we're part of the Arcade Archives Network, and you can go there and see all kinds of nerdy fun things. We do podcasts, we do videos, we do unboxings, we do anything you think of. Of course, I'm an artist, so I also have a webcomic on there as well, Tales from the Game Grid. Check that out. This is the second part of our two-part podcast. So thank you so much for listening.
Please listen to the whole thing. It's great.
Please listen to the whole thing because it's amazing. We also want to thank Crumb's World Comics and Collectibles and Lucky Straw's Boba Tea Cafe because you were so awesome in inviting myself and all of us from the Arcade Archives over there and being in charge of this great Pokemon Day. So thank you guys very, very much. So, yeah, I think that's about it. What we're going to do now is, usually this would be the part of the podcast where I leave you with a special clip from the next episode of the podcast, but we are actually ending this with a very special announcement about this podcast. So, stay tuned. Got a very special announcement right after this. So, before we do end the podcast, thank you guys very much for going, T-Rex and Diana-saur, for joining us. Thank you so much for listening out there, guys. And again, if you want to comment, please make sure to do so during this. If you're listening to this on anywhere, especially YouTube, please let us know. And thank you so much for joining us. Best wishes to everyone out there. Hey, Arcaders, it's Ubernerd 527 and ow! Ah! Hey! Hey, what's that light coming out of my computer for? Ah, it's blinding. Oh, ow. Hey, is that my phone? It's ringing. It's Ray. Hello? Ray? Is that you?
Hey, Josh.
What's going on here?
We're kind of in trouble.
What do you mean we're in trouble?
Your podcast is growing.
What do you mean it's growing?
It seems to be evolving.
Evolving? You mean like a Pokemon? It's evolving?
It's evolving like a Pokemon.
Oh, this is great. What is it evolving into, Ray?
Its own podcast.
Its own podcast? Wait,
Yes.
wait. How do you know all this?
I'm a certified podcast trainer.
You're a certified podcast trainer? When did this happen?
It's an online course. It's in the box top of your favorite cereal. It's a long story. I don't want to go into it.
Okay. Oh, this is gonna be so awesome. I've been wanting to get enough experience for this podcast to evolve. Oh, I'm so happy.
Yes, Cartoon Connoisseur Theater Podcast is proud to announce that Pokemon Rewind has finally evolved into its own full-fledged podcast. Starting this March, you can catch all the Pokemon fun on its own channel here at thearcadearchives.com or on iTunes. Subscribe today.
Thank you for joining us for this Arcade Archives Network video. If you like this, please make sure to subscribe to this channel and leave comments below. If you would like more, please go to thearcadearchives.com or zowie.kerpowie.com. Thank you so much once again for joining us for this Arcade Archives Network video, and don't forget to keep playing like it's 1981.
Message from headquarters. This is a Rebellion production and is part of the Arcade Archives Network. That is all.